What are your prime directives?
Serve the public trust, protect the innocent, uphold the law.
That's good. That's very good.
Huh? Huh?
Of all the directors in the last few decades, Paul Verhoeven gets frequently praised as the most prophetic. Like all great prophets, from Nostradamus to The Simpsons, this must get chalked up to a bunch of different factors, from purely coincidental to an almost mystical ability to be plugged into the cultural zeitgeist. After working at home in the Netherlands for a couple decades, Verhoeven made an international name for himself in the late 1970s. Paul Verhoeven's early work is all in Dutch, and during this first phase, the Seattle Times praised Verhoeven as a one-man Dutch movie industry. However, like in many countries, Dutch films are subsidized by the government, which makes it hard to create controversial work. And Verhoeven has always reveled in the controversial. In the 1980s, Verhoeven decided to move to the United States to get studio financing for his next few movies. However, this meant switching to English language filmmaking. Starting with an ambitious project, Verhoeven co-wrote an ambitious historical drama with his longtime screenwriting collaborator called Flesh and Blood, with an international cast that turned into a disastrous and complicated process. Flesh and Blood was pulled in multiple directions by the creative team, censored for a controversial rape scene, and disastrous at the box office. However, Verhoeven chose an interesting decade to move to the United States, one where money was flooding into corporate coffers, and I think it's safe to say creativity was often lacking. The Universal Pictures story executive, who dreamed of becoming a screenwriter, Edward Neumeier, had conceived of this basic idea for Robocop after witnessing Blade Runner get filmed in the creative lot behind his office. Neumeier teamed up with an aspiring director named Michael Miner, who had sent a music video into Universal.
Sure, but I think that we have to thank really the two writers, Michael Miner and at Neumeier, who basically presented a lot of these things already in the script. I mean, I came to the United States, was 85, 86, and yeah, I jumped into this movie, but I was not so much aware of the political situations that were around. So I'm very... I'm absolutely sure that none of these political observations were coming from me.
Verhoeven also had a connection to Blade Runner, as the Dutch actor Rutger Hauer, who played the villain Roy, had been the star of Flesh and Blood. Neumeier shopped around Hollywood for a buyer for Robocop, eventually ending up at Orion Pictures. Orion Pictures was where Verhoeven had found the financing for Flesh and Blood. However, Verhoeven was not the first director slated to direct. That was Jonathan Kaplan, who ended up leaving to direct Project X.
To the break it down, yo!
No, not that one. The Matthew Broderick one. After Kaplan dropped out, Orion suggested Verhoeven as the director to take over. Verhoeven initially declined the script, and it took 3 sets of rewrites to get him to agree to it. The Blade Runner and Orion connection seemed like perhaps they were the coincidences that aligned the stars for Robocop. Neumeier tapped into the cultural zeitgeist, as he would teach Verhoeven to do for their next, even more prophetic collaboration, Starship Troopers.
Having been a child during World War II and being occupied by the Germans in the 40s in Holland, I mean, I recognized a lot of stuff, and in some way, but although differently. So, but I mean, it's really at Neumeier and Michael Miner who set up this kind of political level that the movie has.
The 1980s were the era of Reagan and Bush, the corporatization of business merging with the hand of state power. And first Carter, then Reagan, ushered in an unprecedented privatization of the public sector.
It is for this reason that I must tell those who fail to report for duty this morning, they are in violation of the law, and if they do not report for work within 48 hours, they have forfeited their jobs and will be terminated.
Starting with Nixon in the 1970s, the war on drugs had led to an increase in incarceration, as well as the ballooning of police budgets across the country.
If we're going to have a successful offensive, we need more money. Consequently, I'm asking the Congress for $155 million in new funds, which will bring the total amount this year in the budget for drug abuse, both in enforcement and treatment to over $350 million.
This moved in tandem with deindustrialization, hitting urban centers in the Midwest and causing poverty and thus crime to skyrocket in cities which had flourished just decades earlier.
It is no exaggeration to say that many people are afraid to be out on the streets at night. Detroiters know about their own city's reputation.
Anyway, she pled guilty to manslaughter.
The homicide rate has gone up during good times and bad, when there was racial tension and when there was not, when other crimes increased or decreased. Homicide is a growth industry. In 10 years, the homicide toll increased 5.5 times.
No better city to exemplify those problems than Detroit, where Robocop is set. In its heyday right after World War II, Detroit was a flourishing city that was the center of auto manufacturing in the United States. The big three automakers, Ford, GM, and Chrysler, are still headed in Michigan.
Foundrymen, blacksmiths, marine engineers, and carriage builders easily switched over to car building. Then, when they figured out a system of fabricating the parts and putting autos together on a moving conveyor, it set the pattern for mass production, the mass production of all sorts of wonderful products. It fired the starting gun for today and the greater days that lie ahead.
But by the late 1960s, as Japan and Germany recovered economically, they began importing cars. The big three began moving their manufacturing to right-to-work states to avoid the demands of United Auto Workers. Detroit was hollowed out and began shrinking. Also, much like other flourishing cities, as the white unionized middle class made more money, they moved out to the suburbs.
As in many other cities, the central business district is not what it used to be. Some people describe it harshly as a zone of decay. At any rate, business has declined, with much of the commerce fleeing to the suburbs.
Meanwhile, a southern exodus pushed more African Americans and Latino Americans into cities like Detroit. Deindustrialization in the 1970s meant poverty for minority communities that had recently moved to Detroit. This makes Detroit, a hollowed out and shrinking city, the perfect setting for Robocop. In Robocop, Detroit has fallen so far that it's a complete dystopia on the brink of full collapse. The mega corporation, Omni Consumer Products, has purchased the city of Old Detroit in order to create the first privatized city, Delta City, as a giant company town. To clean up Detroit in order to move their construction workers, presumably the first wave of residents, into the city, they privatized the Detroit Police Department.
3 dead police officers, 1 critically injured. Police union leaders blame Omni Consumer Products, OCP, the firm which recently entered into a contract with the city to fund and run the Detroit Metropolitan Police Department. Dick Jones, Division President, OCP.
Every policeman knows when he joins the force that there are certain inherent risks that come with the territory.
To clean up the city, Vice President Dick Jones,
I work for Dick Jones! Dick Jones!
commissions the ED-209, Enforcement Droid Series 209, which has been contracted by the military, malfunctions, and kills an Omni executive. Don't worry, it's just a junior executive. Not wanting to lose the contract or get the bad PR, the old man, Omni CEO, allows a junior executive named Bob Morton to pitch the Robocop project. Verhoeven and Neumeier have explained they visualized Robocop as a Jesus figure for the Reagan era. Reagan Jesus.
I'm afraid I can't comment on Delta City. That's not my division. But I will tell you this. At Security Concepts, we're projecting the end of crime in Old Detroit within 40 days.
After trying to bring in several big actors, Orion greenlit the casting of Peter Weller as Robocop. Verhoeven said he liked Weller's chin, the only part exposed by the Robocop suit.
So we basically casted partially on Jaws here. Peter Weller has really the good Jaws, you know. So
Robocop is the perfect corporate soldier, requiring barely any food and no sleep, mostly made of metal armor.
His digestive system is extremely simple. This processor dispenses a rudimentary paste that sustains his organic system.
Robocop has no memories and is programmed for 4 directives: serve the public trust, protect the innocent, uphold the law, and a secret 4th thing. Detroit is overrun by a gang led by Clarence Boddicker, played by Kurtwood Smith.
Or you can hop out of here with my boot in your ass!
At the top of the pyramid is Dick Jones. Dick Jones, Omni's vice president, who's trying to profit off all the misery while also having the company in charge of both fighting crime and military contracts. This shows the immoral nature of corporations in general. Robocop was way ahead of its time, tackling huge issues like police militarization and privatization that would plague our society for the next half century. Long live Reagan Jesus.
You cocksucker! I work for Dick Jones! Dick Jones! He's the number 2 guy at OCP! OCP runs the cops! You're a dumb!
Anyway, before I introduce the panel, let me say, please like this video and subscribe to the Movie Night Extravaganza YouTube channel. Also, we are now monetized, so if you have any pressing questions during this live show, send us a super chat. We are absolutely obligated by international law, human rights law, to answer it. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Movie Night Extra. All of our after parties are available on there forever. Okay, let me introduce the panel. Conan Neutron, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza, host of Protonic Reversal, and frontman for Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends. Right now, Conan is working on Caterwaul 2023. Caterwaul Music Festival is going to be in Minneapolis from May 26th to 29th. Tickets are on sale now at caterwaul.org. Christina Oakes, when she's not dog sitting, you can find her streaming on Twitch at twitch.tv/cosmopolitics. You can find her on Twitter and Instagram at @cosmopolitics. Throw her some subs on Twitch. J. Andrew World, illustrator, book cover artist, comic designer, and artist for Give Them an Argument, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza and Bad Takes. Slim hosts and produces podcasts for Letterboxd, including the Letterboxd Show and their weekend watch list and the 70mm pod. I, of course, am your Academy Award nominated host in the supporting role, Forrest Miller. Let's bring out those nominees.
Part of Christina Oakes will be played by this minifig right here. This is a good one, I think. It looks just like her. So
yeah. It looks like a Lego. Slim? It looks like a Lego Jesus.
Lego Jesus, yeah.
Why not have a Lego Jesus on a podcast? I love the music vibe on those intros. Always gets me to move. I love it.
Yeah.
It's like more hip elevator music than your
exactly.
You want to tap your foot or you want to move?
Yeah.
Speaking of intros, Jesus, that's practically. And speaking of Lego Jesus, that intro is practically a movie, man. You practically made a documentary.
Yeah, that was rad.
Well, we had that nor'easter last night, and I wasn't really doing anything, and it just ended up ballooning out into like a 11-minute mini doc. But I mean, you know. I feel like so much has been said about Robocop as a movie, and it needs like a good amount of like to have like a good like politicized discussion about it too. Like you have to have like a lot of context for the last 50 years to make it make sense. Or you could just have it, be a cool 80s action movie and ignore all the context. And
that also works too. Yeah.
I mean, one context you did skip over was the fact that it was very much inspired by Judge Dredd. And the original sculpt out of Robocop was as an absolute knockoff of Judge Dredd, which Judge Dredd itself was making fun of American films like Dirty Harry, which again is all about the reactionary American. And it was like a satire of America. And if you ever get a chance, go back and read those classic Judge Dredds from the the 70s, early 80s. Those are absolutely fantastic, and the art is top notch. So
there you go. Turn this off and go read some comics. Slim, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'll pretty much say yes to any RoboCop related audio invite. So it was a pretty easy decision. I actually finished it just before recording, had it on. Always a delight to rewatch RoboCop.
I cannot tell you how many times I've seen this film, and that's a good thing. Like this is definitely like a comfort movie. I love it. I love all the extra features that are crammed into like one little like weird bizarre menu in the corner. But they're so plentiful.
The Arrow release, I think Arrow maybe last year put the Blu-ray or 2 years ago, and then most recently then they did a 4K release.
4K.
And that first Blu-ray, it came with like a poster, it came with lobby cards, it came with an OCP sticker, like that set.
Give me the sticker. Oh man,
yeah, it's a really nice sticker. Yeah, I
imagine the kind of person who would put like an OCP sticker on something, or like those cops that put the Punisher logo on stuff.
Oh god,
but they totally misunderstand the context. Yeah.
It's like a corporate guy being like, "I love it. I work at Raytheon. And this is a company it's everything that I want in a contractor.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't drive around necessarily with an OCP sticker on. Maybe put that on my laptop,
Yeah,
a little
that's
bit more
good laptop.
concealed, and maybe people can get the joke.
I think one of the reasons why this film, of which there is no remake, gladly, is that works so well is because a lot of the themes that are in it, at least from like this deep satirical place that Verhoeven was coming from, still are very much of the day right now. Like, and that's actually pretty remarkable and pretty sad in some way. But like the privatization of the police force, just the absolute complete evisceration of like violence culture and conspicuous consumption. Like it's amazing like how good of a satire. So while also being a good action movie, it doesn't get preachy about it.
Yeah, not only that, it introduces the idea of the meme with "I'll buy that for $1."
Exactly. I would buy that for $1. Yes.
I like when they're they use the meme in a perfect context too when they're walking into the meeting room and he's like, I'd buy that for $1. And that's the same way that we strip the context from things that really don't have a context that really makes sense anyway. It's just like some guy saying that on TV and then someone
3 times in the movie where they use it just that well.
Well, it's just like a thing that everybody says and it's just like ubiquitous. Like what I love, the fella, the I Like It guy, I can't remember his character's name right now. He's like sitting there trying to watch the show and there's like a riot happening. So he like breaks the window so he can turn the volume up and hear the show. Amazing moment, by the way.
Yes.
It's there's so many great moments like that where it's just like, I think that Verhoeven coming from not being an American, like gets the evisceration of a particular segment of American culture in a way that makes it deeply entertaining, but maybe like an American director wouldn't have, which is good because everybody passed on this movie. Nobody wanted to make it. Like,
I like that the Jonathan Kaplan, the guy that was originally slated to direct it, he went on to like leave it because he was making a movie with Matthew Broderick and a monkey. Like bigger things came along.
I mean, at the time, you probably would have thought that this movie was going to be a dud too. Like it's the 80s and they're going to try to make a realistic robotic cop. Like in your head, it sounds like this is going to be a dud POS that no one's going to watch. And then it turned out to be the total opposite.
Yeah, it's like one of the greatest action movies of all time. But NBD. But if you just see the title Robocop, you're like, what the?
Yeah, and there's like a whole clip that I found where they're talking shit about it, and they're like, we wanted to change the name, but like we couldn't think of anything else besides Robocop. Like that name just worked too well for it. But like every single person that read it, like most people probably didn't open the first page of the script because they're like, this movie's called Robocop. Like,
send it to Joe Dante. We aren't going to do it.
Right. And also, isn't there the famous story too that even he turned it down a few times? But I think the legend is that his wife read it and explained to him that like this is actually pretty good. Like the themes in the movie, you're gonna want to maybe read this again.
So he's like, there's some depth to it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's that legend, on the screen
in video form. Wow.
Oh. Yeah.
Asking ye shall receive, Slim.
I love it.
I had reservations about the title because the title is just basically silly. And no matter who you told the title to, you could just see the expression on their face like, God, why are they involved with such a piece of junk? So we often thought about trying to come up with a better title, but it stuck.
In fact, I remember Orion saying, we can never sell it with that title. It's stupid. It sounds like a kid's movie. But in the end, a title that tells you what the movie is really quite good.
Action!
I'd always been this huge fan of Paul Verhoeven. Barbara Boyle had just finished doing Flesh and Blood with him for Orion. She said, well, let me send it to Paul Verhoeven. Paul was having trouble in Holland. He just was not getting along with the people in the film business there, I guess.
First movies that I did, included Soldier of Orange, were always financed by government that was right wing. Now, when the government changed to the left wing, I started to have problems. It started already with Spatters because they thought it was decadent and perverted.
Paul's a director. He can direct actors. Beautiful camera work. I mean, Kichi Tipple, Soldier of Orange, Spatters, Turkish Delight. I mean, these are good pictures. I can't imagine in a million years that Paul Verhoeven would want to do this picture. And sure enough, he said no.
When I got finally script of Robocop, and I read it. I thought it was extremely silly and stupid. I threw it on the floor and saying, I'm not going to shoot this kind of rubbish. My wife picked up that script Robocop and read it. And she said, yeah, this is perhaps not, it's not Shakespeare, but it is a script with more layers than you think.
Martine read it and said, there's decapitations and people getting their arms ripped off. You'll like it. And indeed, he said, well, I have never seen the hero get his hand blown off.
And he sent us a telegram saying that he would do the picture. And no one was more shocked than I.
In the movies like Turkish Delight or Soldier of Orange, The Forced Man and Spatters, which are the most well-known in the United States, you are really talking about people and not special effects. So it's strange because I had never done anything like that. And it was not that I was craving to do it. It was not that I thought, my God, I remember these movies out of my youth and I want to do them myself. I think in general, I would say that I was not a big fan of science fiction.
Doesn't matter. We're going to blank his memory anyway.
I think it's really amazing with Paul's work. There's nothing that indicates anything like this before, and he effortlessly pulls that off.
Well, he signed the release forms when he joined the force. He's legally dead.
Have any? So I know we've only ever covered Benedetta on this show, which is really bizarre.
Yes.
Has anyone seen?
No, we did
those early
Showgirls.
films?
We did Showgirls.
I'm trying to forget.
I have seen Soldier of Orange. I like that with Rutger Hauer, and he, that was before he kind of transitioned to English language films. That was pretty good.
Yeah, I recently saw Flesh and Blood, or Fresh. Was that's the one, right?
Mhm.
It's his first American one, and that's something.
I like how also it's American funded, but he immediately left to go to Madrid to film it. Like, he's like, look, this might be my first American film, and I'll do it in English language, but like, I do not want to be here.
And I got a good actor to star in it.
I mean, he's got an amazing filmography. Like after when Benedetta was like being hyped, I started to go through his filmography to see ones that I'd missed. So I watched Elle, which I thought was incredible. Very interesting way to tackle the subject matter. And then I finally watched Basic Instinct for the first time, I think like a couple years ago. Oh, yeah, and I had so much fun watching that. It was a hoot.
Oh, Basic Instinct rocks. That's a great film.
Yeah.
Yeah, except for the fact that Sharon Stone lost her, custody of her child because of that movie.
Is that real? My God.
That was just on the news, like 3 days ago or something.
Yeah. She just was talking about, she's opening up about it publicly.
Dang.
Which is just like, oh, man, that. Because it's like you do.
I think she should have been given custody of other people's children based on how great that was.
Yeah, I was gonna say when I was reading the wiki that like it turned into at the time when they did like that first premiere, she said she had no idea that scene was in it, and she asked Verhoeven essentially to remove it, and he refused. So it was almost like a he said she said, but like at that point, why not just remove it if she asks?
Yeah.
Because that felt like a giant dick move to not.
It also feels like it's crazy that it was that movie that made her lose her kid and not Casino. Like this.
Good point. Yeah.
This is not. I do not want this drug addict around kids. Like I don't know. She just played that role so effectively in Casino. I feel like.
Yeah.
Wow.
What was the criminal behavior in Basic Instinct other than being hot? Don't answer that. I will also but think about the other ones he did, like Total Recall.
Yeah.
Like pretty good.
Amazing.
Starship Troopers, like one of the other great like sci-fi satires, like which is doubly hilarious because like Heinlein's original Starship Troopers is so different. And I love seeing people like not getting the satirical aspects of that film where it's like, all right, think about this. Think about this a little harder, would you?
Yeah. When I was a kid, I liked Starship Troopers, but I didn't connect with it in terms of action like I did RoboCop. Because when I was growing up, RoboCop was just like awesome, like a robot cop destroying people. Like this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And when I watched Starship Troopers, like I don't know if it's as cool as RoboCop. And then eventually I watched it as an adult and got it.
Yeah, I watched Starship Troopers as a kid too, but like I rented it from the video store, not knowing what it was, and just like wanting another like star related movie, I guess. Like, Starship Troopers looks cool, and I remember being like, giant bugs, what the fuck?
I like that they never made a sequel to that one either. They also did, just like they never made a sequel or remake of RoboCop.
Was that new? I think is it Neumeier who went on? I think Neumeier's like career is Starship related.
Yeah,
from after this point.
It's pretty much a niche.
It makes it interesting that you know, he had a writing partner that I don't think transitioned with him to Starship Troopers. Verhoeven jumped on. That's like the one big one that he like wrote and directed, like in this period or whatever, co-wrote. And I think that's kind of interesting that like Ed Neumeyer was like, look, I've had two ideas. One is RoboCop, the other one's Starship Troopers. That's my like, you know,
But like,
pretty good.
Starship Troopers, it was like he wrote something really similar to Starship Troopers, and they're just like, well, why don't you just do Starship Troopers? And he's like, oh, okay.
I'd heard their names together, I think, on the RoboCop TV series.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. I mean,
Prime Directives. I think they teamed up for that. Because when I was growing up, I remember seeing them at Suncoast Video.
Canadian produced, so it's like everybody from Stargate's in it.
Yeah, yes. And I remember thinking when I was younger, like, what is this? I've never heard of more RoboCop movies besides like the first two or maybe the third one. And I took it back and I was like, what is this? Like,
is that the one where like he can't shoot anybody, so he's just like walking around and stuff?
Yeah, he like shoves his fingers up a guy's nose and like stretches them out.
Yeah. The action figures, I think, were from that show too. I remember like some of the characters getting their own action figures. There were some interesting ideas. There was like an artificial intelligence Siri type character that he interacted with that took control of the city. Some of the stuff was actually still pretty forward thinking. Like if they had made another movie, it would have been pretty cool if they just not made a TV show instead.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Because like the whole concept's like he wakes up in the year like 3000. And I'd be mixing this up a little bit with the reboot that almost happened with the guy who did Black Swan, Aronofsky.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to like wake up in the far future and like they need a RoboCop because of there's crime and they don't quite know how to deal with it. And that's kind of like talking about like
I hope that's the dialogue. We need a RoboCop that can solve these problems for us.
Hey, we need some kind of robot cop.
We got one in the basement.
I got one of those back over here.
And it's an amazing idea. Like I was pissed that Aronofsky couldn't make it, and then who's the other director? Neil Blomkamp, who did District 9. So he also was attached to that property, and like many others that he's attached to, never happened. But yeah, it sucks because I think they even said like Peter Weller was going to like potentially loan his likeness to the film and voice, but it's just like, ugh, come on, now's the time.
Yeah, no kidding, right? And like they did that great, since we're just talking about spin-off media, I guess, that there's that great RoboCop versus Terminator Dark Horse graphic novel that it was like, that's your screenplay. Make that movie.
Rick Miller, who wrote the what ended up becoming the sequels. Those were not his scripts, by the way. That's a whole other.
If they were to exist, we would discuss them. But since they don't exist, we don't have to.
Honestly, though, I just watched the second one because I had time, and like the subtext of the city trying to do a hostile takeover of this, the OCP trying to do a hostile takeover of Detroit is just like, like that like I remember at the time like that'll never happen. It's like. Yeah, that's
actually.
Well, there's the right now. Elon Musk is getting ready to do his Tesla company town.
It's like his Delta City. Yeah.
And I assume that
I'm sure it'll work out great.
Well, no matter how bad Delta City is and how authoritarian, I imagine Tesla's going to be worse. For the small reason that the turnover rate of Tesla is insane. So like if you bank on having a contract and getting a house out of that, and then it's a company that like fires and lays people off constantly, like I imagine just living in like this anxiety-ridden community of constant fear where like every other day like someone who lives above you or below you or something is just like, oh, I'm packing my bags, Tesla laid me off and now I have nowhere to live. Homeless population skyrockets or something. I don't know.
It's not gonna but again, that's one of the reasons why again RoboCop, the movie we're discussing, it was so prescient. Like is that, and like I think you see some of that. Sorry to bother you, kind of does that a little bit, like the planned community aspects of it.
Yeah,
everyone always remembers the end for good reason, but like that's like the whole like, oh, you live and you work in the same place and it's this idyllic community. Like yeah, right, sure it is. Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, I mean, in both cases, it's kind of a forward-thinking. They have basically people living in the cubes in Sorry to Bother You, as that's kind of happening. And Amazon's like, we have people living in these cubes.
Oh, we're doing that too. We're crazy. Don't admit that. Don't say we're living in Cuba.
Right now, they're not doing the RoboCops as in guys like robot guys. They have the robot dogs, and that shit is more terrifying.
Somebody, I don't remember who it was. Somebody chimed in on Twitter with a picture of one of those Boston Dynamics, style robots, where it's like, oh, it's like lame Ed 209. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
It's
essentially.
like Ed 209 at home.
What could go wrong?
Ed 209, but instead of being stuck there like the fucking AT-AT things and fucking Star Wars. Those ones can jump. Like
they can jump. Hey, we made something can jump. Have you never seen a movie before? Because that is not a good idea. Don't make them jump.
Well, we just talked about that with
they're dancing. It's so cute. No. It's when they're armed, it's not going to be that cute.
We just talked about it with Jurassic Park, and they're like, oh, well, we could use that same process to make a woolly mammoth, and it's like, are we like in separate universes where sci-fi is not warning you about stuff to do? It's just giving you ideas about what your company should be doing right now? Because no. Don't do that.
Scientists should be forced, Clockwork Orange style, to sit in a screening room and have a select few amount of dystopian sci-fi pictures played at them, so they understand why. Oh, maybe we shouldn't do that.
Oh, I thought my idea was you could Clockwork Orange a media literacy class, like seminar and like understanding what movies are telling you.
Dystopian sci-fi.
Those, and I think they'd even did a Black Mirror episode that has like basically a derivation of one of those things, like roaming around, right? And that was one of the most horrifying episodes of a very horrifying show. But Ed 209. Wait, what's that?
I was just gonna say there's also an X-Files episode where they did that in the rebooted couple of seasons.
Oh, I dipped out on that pretty quick, man. I was
I watched every single one of them.
Was that the one where they had like the restaurant? The restaurant was controlled by a computer. It was like some of those episodes
started at, and like it was great because it was so subtle, like how everything was being done. It was one of the more clever episodes.
Right.
There's like like 3 or 4 episodes out of
those
2 seasons.
Not for me.
Better.
Yeah.
So I think that. So one of the things that I love too about. This is actually going somewhere about Mad God kind of being in the popular consciousness. People understand what a badass Phil Tippett is. Because when you think about, and because Slim, I'm the same as you. I saw this as a pretty young man, probably too young, frankly, because it wasn't the edited version. And I mean, Ed 209 is terrifying. It still is terrifying. Obviously, it looks a little bit of its time now, but the stop motion, there's something about stop motion that's like, it's so freaky and like unnatural looking that is just naturally terrifying.
Yeah, it's so good in this movie. I feel like it still holds up. On this watch and previous watches, I like can tell in the 4K, and it's probably the same in the Blu-ray, where like you can see how the stop motion in frame is like, and the background characters are obviously like a smaller quality. It's like this is obviously some like technical of the time technology, but it's still so badass. Like it's still so cool. The fight in the stairwell is so cool. And it works with the combination of Phil Tippett, but then also like Verhoeven's direction and the cinematography in the movie. Like there's so many cool shots of Robo just like looking through his visor with like one eye at like all of those things, where any other, like a less talented crew, it would probably be just terrible. But I honestly feel like with the combination of like the Phil and Verhoeven and so many others and Peter Weller, like that's the only reason that this movie works, because everyone did so well.
How he chose to like move even, right? Because I think originally like he wanted to have like fast movements, this and that, and like he like it's real. I know there's a small, and I'm mixing and matching like what I sort of saw of one of these making ofs with just some stuff that's just in the ether. Oh, there he is, RoboFlack. But the whole thing where it's kind of bird-like almost, where like how he kind of like he'll like snap to do a thing, but like everything about it, like how he kind of swings around full body style. And I love a small little bit of trivia is that like in the car they couldn't fit the whole suit in the car, so it was just the top half and Peter Weller in his underwear. And then that's why they have all the shots of him like swinging his legs out, because they had to do those separately.
Yeah,
which I think is so amazing. And like I love but like you would never know, right? Because it is so immersive and it takes you right to it. That well, he's moving like when it doesn't show you him at first, when you see him like walking through the police station, you see little bits and pieces there. You see a bit and piece there, and people are like, oh, well, see people reacting to him, but you don't see him.
I talked about
That's
this with
good stuff.
Jurassic Park. The way they didn't, they held off showing dinosaurs. They showed everybody's reaction first, and it's very much this is before Jurassic Park, so you're just watching everybody's reactions. That is such I love that scene so much, because I remember sitting in the theater because I was 10 years old. My dad took me. Sitting in the theater watching that, like wanting to see RoboCop, and just like the little glimpses you're getting, and I just remember just the excitement building up inside. Because back in the 80s. Yeah.
Wait, so was this movie? This movie was rated R, right? Your dad took you to see RoboCop rated R, age 10. That's legit.
When I was 10.
Oh man,
had you already seen Buckaroo Banzai at that point?
Yes, I had.
He's Slim Andy is like the biggest Buckaroo Banzai fan in the world.
I thought you were going to say Peter Weller, super fan as a kid.
By extension,
it was a year before RoboCop came out, and I saw the director's cut, which it doesn't exist anymore. But I saw the director's cut of it.
Okay.
With a bunch of hardcore fans that were like shouting the lines out of the movie. It's absolutely wild.
Well, that's one of the reasons why Peter Weller was actually picked to play the role, is because that was it's strange to think about Buckaroo Banzai as anything other than a weird cult classic now, but at the time it was like oh yeah, Buckaroo Banzai, that's an interesting movie, that's cool, that guy has leading man potential, right? And so then when they were casting for Robert Kopp, they were like Peter Weller, that he's got, like I said, Verhoeven's the jawline. I like that. I also like, by the way, that he's and they talked about doing a sequel, and I just wasn't into that at all. It was just where he's he told the story, and not to jump ahead, but I love the ending too. It's the perfect ending. It's the perfect ending for this film. And originally they were going to show I can't remember the character's name, his partner's name, and she was going to be
Lewis.
Robert. Yeah, Lewis is going to be Robert Kopped up too, and
I believe it's pronounced Robert.
Robocop, and then when they were like, no, he's like, no, we can't. This is the ending, and then she was like, oh, I don't have to work, have to do that. That's great.
Right, and she didn't. I don't remember. I feel like she got it. Even she might have even commented how the sequels really didn't do anything for her, and or even her character. And you probably remember this, but I think Frank Miller's original scripts for 2 were turned into a comic book, a full produced comic book.
Yes.
Have you read those? Did you remember what happens to Lewis in those issues?
I don't exactly, but I do know that the RoboCop 2, the second RoboCop, kills her. And that's the motivation that RoboCop has to go after him. Which after just rewatching it, it's very flimsy why he's going after. It's like, I really hate this drug. And that's his motivation. And it's stupid.
That is I just hate you telling me about it, let alone seeing it. That sounds horrible. That's
But Peter Weller, his mime work, it's so good even when he turns a 180, the leg movements that he does to twist. It's just next level work in this movie, and
not
it's
only
just
that,
so
in the sequel, as bad as the sequel is, they reprogrammed RoboCop in one part, and Peter Weller's performance, you're watching him, and he's not moving like RoboCop's supposed to. He's like this weird puppeteer thing,
cop,
and it's all Peter Weller. That's performance that makes that moment of that terrible movie. Which I still gave 3 stars.
I think I might have given that 4 stars. Where do I have it? Because I also 3.5. So I didn't love it. I do remember specifically the purple hue on his suit in RoboCop 2 is very different and more pronounced.
But I think it
stylistically it looks different.
The gunmetal gray of the villain, you wanted it to stand out more. So visually, I mean, it's like we talked a little bit about this with Tokyo Drifter, like how they picked that powder blue coat because it would always stand out against the background. You don't want to have 2 gray, characters going at each other. I mean, that's like a DC movie today. Instead, they made him blue purplish, which is really weird choice. But like it's in the first movie, so they just kind of played it up.
Speaking of two gray robots, do you remember the plot in the TV series where his former partner, his new partner, gets turned into a RoboCop and they have to fight each other?
I vaguely remember.
It's not Lewis. He has a dude partner that they had like this long friendship, but he eventually gets turned into a RoboCop.
Whenever that show came out, that's when I saw it, and I have not seen it, nor have I thought about it until since then.
Yeah. I remember it was filmed in Toronto, and I was hanging out with somebody in Toronto telling me about, like, yeah, they were filming RoboCop last week right around the corner here. I'm like, wait, what? Because
Toronto is just like, Detroit, but more polite and with different snacks. So
right. Wasn't X-Files also filmed in Canada too?
Yeah, that was in Vancouver
at some point.
Who knows how big
Canada is?
Vancouver.
Was it if they had made a third one, would that have been the one with the jetpack and the katana and all that?
If they made a third one, it would have been that one.
One of my favorite actors, Mako from Seven Samurai. No, not from Seven Samurai.
Seven Samurai? What?
Remember, I could for like the longest.
He'd be quite spry for his age. Yeah.
But no, Mako's in the third one, and that's really the only reason to watch the third one is for Mako just to show up.
It's not enough.
Chew the scenery. Yeah,
it's not enough, people. Don't do it. But back to RoboCop proper. They spent like 6 to 8 months trying to find their lead. This is normally Christina's bit, but since she's not here, I'm gonna in absentia. I'll bring it. So Arnold Schwarzenegger was one of them. That's a different movie.
That would have been insane.
Yeah.
No, he
would have been bad, but it would have been different.
He would have been great as RoboCop, but not as Murphy, and that's what makes it is that Peter Weller's great at both. It's that charm, like there's this twinkle in his eye that Schwarzenegger, as big of a fan I am of his, just doesn't quite have. It's like, oh, I like to drive when I'm breaking in a new partner. Just like
yeah,
and then they both kind of smile at that, it worked because
and was Terminator was first. Was before RoboCop.
Yeah.
So he would have been RoboCop and Terminator. Amazing. That would have been that would have been amazing. Keith Carradine was considered for RoboCop. So that would have been interesting.
That would have been. Gosh. What you'd love how like the Nick Cage Superman stuff leaked, the set stuff. I would love to see like leaked set footage or like costume try-ons for other actors for the original RoboCop.
Rutger Hauer was considered.
Oh, that makes sense given their history.
Yep. That would have been cool. That would have been different. Sylvester Stallone was discussed.
Oh my god.
At least he would have fit in the car. Am I right? I got him. He's short. What, Andy? What were you gonna say?
Yes. I was just gonna say, that basically is Judge Dredd.
Yeah. Michael Ironside was the he was like the other, like basically it was maybe gonna be Michael Ironside. They got like really down to it, and that's a different. And I think that it was like he's too big. He's like they were thinking about the car. Can he fit in the car with all the stuff on? Peter. This is perfect for Peter Weller. I mean, this is like plays exactly to his strengths. Again, Andy, I think you bring up a good point about doing the Murphy stuff, because the reason why the RoboCop arc works is because it's him rediscovering his humanity. It was just basically stripped away by this private corporation that runs the police department. And then, again, and he reconciles at the end, because obviously he doesn't get to like be a human again, but he gets his humanity back. And that's so vital, because otherwise you just have like a fun dystopian action film where, a dude gets blasted by toxic goo and then explodes like a pressurized sack when a car hits him. Right. And that's great. I'm here for it. Don't get me wrong, but
so that makes me wonder about Michael Ironside though and Verhoeven. I mean, like they were famously a collaborative team for Starship Troopers, Total Recall. Like they just kind of did pretty much everything together after this. I wonder if he contacted Michael Ironside and was like, you could not do I can't do a good Dutch voice right now.
Vaguely ethnic accent.
No, they do something like weird with like their tongue and their cheek, and I can't I don't think but
maybe they like maybe that's why he's like, hey, I want to get in on this, because he's great in Starship Troopers. So
yeah, and great in Total Recall.
And Total Recall.
Another classic. Also, yeah, the video you played, he even remarks about how he wasn't like into sci-fi before he directed Robocop, and yet he has directed 3 of maybe the most important sci-fi films ever made.
Yeah, like you're on the board for 3 of the best of all time, man.
Right.
Like, that's kind of amazing.
Well, but then the second he got disillusioned completely with Hollywood and left, he left sci-fi. I mean, I wouldn't consider anything about Benedetta sci-fi, even though she may or may not.
Even though it's on a spaceship, it's wild.
No, well, like even though she may or may not have like the fantasy aspect of like the word of God, maybe not, like questionable.
I was just gonna say the whole religious aspect of sci-fi, right?
Well, what is Jesus if not the first sci-fi hero?
I just love the idea of like I've always said that I think like I would love to see a romantic comedy made by someone that just despises the genre of romantic comedies, like things along those lines. So meaning that what he brought to his filmmaking sensibilities, bringing to a genre that he wasn't really into. Like, I think that's fresh because think about, okay, if we're going to expand it out, Starship Troopers, Total Recall, sure. Robocop, this was fresh because again, it wasn't like Dystopia hadn't been done before. It had, but this style of satire that also was a really thrilling action movie, but had like a good degree of heart to it. Let's be fair. I mean, that combination of things really hadn't been done before. $6 Million Man, right? Of course, there's a precedent for it. But $6 Million Man basically just got to do cool stuff because they built him better, right? And Robocop like literally had his humanity stripped away from him by a corporation that basically ostensibly owned the police department.
Would you say
That's
that
crazy.
Robocop was a successful implementation of Build Back Better?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you'd almost say like if they made this now, I wonder
if they did, which of course they would never do.
Right. But like in today's climate, like this what they made in the 80s resonates extremely well and isn't really too finger pointy, but I almost feel like most directors and writers would almost be like unwilling to make something this satirical today without it being almost too on the nose. It almost works like today because it was made so many years ago. Like if they had done this today, I don't know. I don't think it would connect in the same way. It would almost probably be too divisive.
Like Don't Look Up, which was definitely accused of being a little bit too on the nose. I don't know how you parody the entire climate apocalypse without being too on the nose, but like, that's kind of the style of satirical content we get today, as opposed to something like this, which kind of doubles as an action movie. I don't think you could watch Don't Look Up and be like, yeah, I didn't get that was about climate change at all. Like
right.
Yeah. I didn't get that. Yeah. Well, but that's the thing is it's harder to nuance in this day and age. And I think there are movies that do, but they tend to be smaller. Slim, you had a good slow sci-fi, I think you called it, which I was like, oh yeah, where it's like these are like sci-fi movies that are not gonna like, be over the top thrillers with huge budgets or whatever along those lines. But there's really cool ideas that are there, and there's really cool like things being presented. They do exist. It's just that they rarely break huge.
Yeah, because maybe studio's gonna take a chance on it. That's why they're like the lo-fi sci-fi. Like we'll give you $10 million to make this, or like even less than that, or you have to finance it yourself.
Right, exactly.
Then we'll talk.
That's why they need to make my RoboCop remake. That's coming out.
Oh man, he's here to build back better.
Yeah.
Listen, Jack.
They'll fix it, Jack. They'll fix it, make it better, Jack.
It's Brandon Cop. You know what I mean? He's out there. He's
Who did that make Boddicker? You know what? Don't answer that. I don't want the answer.
Well, he's taking down the Trump Corporation. The Trump Corporation is they're trying to build a whole town of hotels, and he's like, not on my watch, Jack.
Can we give a shout out for how freaking awesome the Clarence Boddicker character is? Because I somehow forgot, and then like when I did a rewatch, actually it wasn't this rewatch, it was like rewatched like 6 months ago. I was like, damn man, he's eating it up, and it's like little things where it's like there's like the drug dealer guy he's got like the wine glass, right, and he just like slips his finger in the wine, like total dick move, right? But and then like everybody's like getting ready to shoot each other. He's like guns, like that's just like, and he's just like could not be like less like worried about it, right?
Since Joker almost,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Which is not the direction they wanted to go with it. And I remember watching this last year and thinking like, this is like a gang of like theater kids, and I wonder where this idea kind of comes from. That like, you know, it's Red from that 70s show leading a gang of theater kids. But the original version of it, he's kind of like a terrifying drug lord. Like they wrote him you know, playing it seriously.
Like
and
real
he was
straight.
like, yeah, and he was like, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. And it's like that works so much better. Like I feel like if he was taking down like a real, if they weren't like cartoonish theater kids that are like, you know, they aren't getting any stage productions, like Count Olaf and the Series of Unfortunate Events and his gang. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I feel like it would be
no, they're like a PBS you know, children's show grown up to a life of
yeah,
I
there's
love
like big motions. Yeah, absolutely.
But also, if he was playing it straight and the rest of them looked the way they did, it wouldn't work either.
Yeah.
And I love that when he.
That's why they got an Asian guy, they got a black guy, you know.
They got Leland Palmer.
But I like that when he has you know, the cop down before like right before they kill him or whatever, he's like na 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 na. Yeah. There's like the gun sounds and shit like.
Well, and it makes the hyper violence of him literally having his hand blown off, which apparently is that's the scene where Verhoeven's like, okay, maybe this is good. Where he's like, oh, I haven't seen that before, you know, like, and that's when he thought the script was good, when the hand got blown.
Well, and that's when the Reagan Jesus example comes around, because it's like each one of
they
those
needed
is
to
like
do in
crucifixion.
the remake is blow his hand off.
I remember as a kid when those scenes, because I'd only seen like the TV edit, but then as I grew up, I remember hearing like, oh, there's like a director's cut of RoboCop, and you had to like track that down. There's like, oh, his hand gets shot off, and there's like 3 more seconds of blood shooting out of his body or something like that. Yeah. And I mentioned how crazy it was that you had seen RoboCop and Predator at 10, but now that I think about it, I think I showed my son those 2 movies at the same age. But in my head, in like 2020, I guess it was 2020 when I showed it to him, I don't know, the violence, I feel like I'm almost desensitized to this movie. Like where even the Kenny scene where he's getting shot and there's like extra 5 seconds of Kenny getting shot in the uncut X-rated version. I'm like, it doesn't look that bad now. I feel like so much that has come out since then. I'm like, I don't know. This isn't mega violent to me. And I guess that speaks more to our society in general. But I think that way.
Right. The 80s did a thing where they made rated R movie for children, which is also kind of nuts in a way. So like, you know, they would come out.
Well, everyone was on mountain for cocaine. You don't think that things are that's crazy.
So like, do you remember the Alien? Do you remember the Alien action figures that came out when Alien came out?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Not the first one, the second one. Yeah. Aliens. Yes. And they came out with action figures for Rambo.
They only ever made the 2 movies, so that's fine. Yeah.
I had a 24-inch Arnold Schwarzenegger action figure from Commando.
Commando. Wow.
Yeah, where you could like strip him down to like his little speedos that he wears when he rows the boat to the island before.
Oh yeah.
Wow. All right.
Oh, so Andy, I pulled this this clip for you. This is about this is a clip where Verhoeven talking about how it's about what we're talking about. Well, it's about, you know, Peter Weller's portrayal and you know, the 80s movies that were kind of crazy. And here they talk about Buckaroo Banzai and how Buckaroo Banzai ended up inspiring the Peter Weller casting.
Look at that screen cap, by the way. Sorry, audio listeners, but look at that screen cap.
I also feel like it's awesome that he looks so much like better now with his look, because you know we watched the Benedetta clips where he's like on a panel or whatever. He looks so much like
sophisticated.
I feel like people did not look good in the 80s with these styles they were choosing.
Such was the style of its time.
Still hadn't found anybody, and then ultimately somebody called us and say, well, Peter Weller is in New York, and why don't you visit him? He might be interested.
Peter Weller made a bit of a splash on a film called Buckaroo Banzai, Across the Eighth Dimension. And John Davison certainly was aware of Peter's work in Buckaroo Banzai, so he was one of the people who tested for it.
I pointed out that it would be a life of suffering and that he would not be happy.
Peter had martial arts training, so that was appealing. We knew that a lot of his performance would be mime, so we needed somebody who liked the idea of doing mime.
He started immediately to take lessons about choreographing his steps, basically how he would have to walk with a Robocop costume on.
Peter very much had in mind these kind of quick bird-like movements, particularly when he is fighting.
Originally, we had cast Stephanie Zimbalist in the role of Lewis. And a couple of weeks before we started shooting, she pulled out. So we were in a mad scramble to find someone to replace her. And fortunately, we found Nancy Allen, who was available.
I haven't really had a chance to introduce myself. I'm Ann Lewis.
Nancy Allen, primarily before that, had been playing kind of shallow, bitchy teenage characters. Carrie, of course, is her signature part. But she was also always known for having these long strawberry curls. Very first thing Paul said to her is, cut your hair.
I'm a mess.
Paul was actually trying, once again, to take a performer with an established persona and tweak it.
You really don't remember me, do you?
Dick Jones, the character who Ronnie Cox plays, is one of the most evil, manipulative, and corrupt of the OCP officials.
You just fucked with the wrong guy.
But prior to playing Dick Jones, Ronnie Cox, for the most part, had played the exact opposite type of character. Wholesome family man or country guitar strumming, ordinary guys, just very, very nice characters.
I'm confident we can go to prototype within 9.
He's so great in this too. Like he's like, can you imagine? Like I mean, just like the bathroom scene alone, it's like, oh, he's earning it on this one. That's awesome.
And he goes on to, in Total Recall, he's also the villain. Like those are the 2 times he gets actually.
And then Jellicoe and Star Trek: Next Generation, which
yeah. Oh, that's right.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, he was. I totally forgot it. I literally just rewatched that entire series too. That character.
He's the captain of the Enterprise for a couple episodes,
and everyone's mad at him. But like, look, every suggestion he's making is better than what you're doing. Like, including like Troy's uniform, which is totally inappropriate. He's right.
Dick, the way he does it, it's just but he's right.
Ronnie Cox is so great in this, and like it's funny because it isn't really set up. It's set up that he's an impressive figure, but not that he's like the big bad necessarily at first. And then you kind of realize, like, as time goes on, and there's all those like little things, Boddicker like invoking his name and whatever, and all the yelling, that like, but then you just see how absolutely ruthless he is. Like again, at the era of greed is good, right?
He's like almost the most. I mean, I don't mean brain damage in the sense of like like the developmental disorder kind of brain damage. I mean like in the sense of like this kind of thing that eats away at you, right? Like the greed and he's kind of the most brain damaged of all of them. He's the most greed damaged, I guess. Like in the sense that like everybody at that table has been making decisions that, I mean, just the ED 209 existing and the military contracts is already not a good decision, but he's the one that's willing to take it that extra mile and be like, we could still use it. Like, it's just,
we can use it for we can use it for other things. Yeah.
So
which is so
like,
awesome.
he's like the biggest sociopath out of a room of sociopaths, which you kind of forget about by the end of it when he's like, you're fired. And it's like that whole, like, he finally gets his, but it's like, that's how it works with like bad apples, right? Like there's always one bad apple that they're like, that's the guy, like, let's get this guy down. He's the scapegoat. But then you think about it, you're like, no, they're still privatizing this whole city. Robocop still exists. And they would have gone through with the ED 209 if they didn't have a backup plan.
See, that's the brilliance at the end of the second Robocop, which I really hate to say.
Damn it. They don't say it.
Yeah, I'm going to say it because we're this far already. No, but no, the end of it, they do that in the remake. They send the 209 to Afghanistan. But anyways, no, the sequel, the end of the film, they end it with basically like you see how corrupt everybody at OCP actually is, and that they're just like, oh, we're going to find our own scapegoat, and they puts Johnson on it.
Well, I love the 2 scenes that like kind of went the hardest for me as a kid that I can think of were the "you're fired" scene, because remember that's that 4th directive, like the secret 4th thing that's his directive, right?
We hit so hard this week in particular. With the failing of the fucking Silicon Valley Bank, and it's like a similar thing where it's like, no, the 4th directive is always there in all of these situations.
And the other thing, and this is much less of a discussion topic than just a notation, when he like does his access port and it's like he flips off the guy.
Oh yeah,
I thought that was like the best thing I'd ever seen when I was a kid, and I still think it's pretty great, frankly.
Oh my god, when I was a kid, that was just amazing.
Yeah. And then it's Chekhov's middle finger, because then he uses it to get him, to get him in the neck at the end, which is so great. She's like, how's he gonna get out of this one? He's got the thing.
Which is also another like R-rated violent scene. I think that one was also another director's cut edition.
No, that
right?
was on the VHS version.
With the blood that flies down was on the
Yes, I remember
always
like
thought
sitting
that
there.
was cut for some reason.
No, I had it on VHS, so like I have internalized this movie so much, and it's you know, whenever I do art, I either put on like a movie or a podcast or music, like depending on what I need at the moment. And RoboCop was one of my go-to movies, and I just remember sitting there in college one day, watching it for like the 47th time, and just like seeing the blood gush out in the VHS version, and just like, wow, that's really great how they did that. That you know exactly where he hit. That's awesome.
CGI, you know.
And even the scene right before that, when he first does it, and the shot is still on RoboCop, and then just like the opened up bag of blood just falls on RoboCop. Like I thought his heart came out on RoboCop's chest. It's very thick, and like it just drops on him. So cool.
I think it's a Kurosawa reference.
Maybe.
Speaking of blood, Stevie in the comments here, I think Kurtwood Smith didn't tell the other actors he wasn't going to spit blood at the precinct to get a better reaction from the actors. Again, how badass is Clarence Boddicker? That's a perfect like, give me my phone
and the
call,
scene with the gum too, where he takes out the gum and sticks it on the secretary's name tag.
Yeah, what are you
He's
doing
like-
later? Or whatever he's saying.
Yeah, he's like, you can keep the gum.
So repulsive. How about his little tracker, his little robo tracker?
Oh
device?
yeah,
That
it looks
thing
like
is
it's like a
cool, too.
PDA. Yeah, like
I
80s
say,
version of
Red, what are you doing? That's not Kitty.
and then you get like little moments of comic relief where you know, they're hanging out with the sex workers too, and you know, there's that whole thing. There's lots of things that like I've seen this so many times that I'll like kind of low-key access list drop, I guess, because I'm so like wound up about the other things. Because like, oh yeah, I remember him blowing the house up. I don't remember this whole like thing where like they're partying and like it's like, oh yeah, you know, I'm so intelligent. Oh yeah, you're so intelligent.
Right.
No, that was my first time ever seeing anybody do cocaine in a movie. So,
Which is also like, how did I see this young and like see all this stuff? That's the thing that's so crazy. But
I just thought
I
it
don't
was
think
sugar.
about it.
Well, and
It's like-
and it's also I feel like the villainousness of the Dick Jones character is obviously the ruthlessness, but also just the fact that he can take out each of these rivals pretty much like throughout the movie. And
Yeah.
like for him to be like, oh, you know, I've outsmarted this guy. And like number one, when he emerges from the bathroom to grab him by the hair, and number
Yeah.
two, when he appears on the
Well,
screen.
and small moment, the one dude like pees himself as he
Yeah.
like dashes out, which
Awful.
and that's so like totally like this guy is that intimidating because he's like, haha, yeah, sure, all right, later, gotta go. By the way, he doesn't wash his hands in that. You should notice that also. I mean, he just take gross, but yeah.
Look, I need you for this take. Do not wash your hands.
But it shows what an intense dude he is, right? And how he's like, oh yeah, like because Miguel Ferrer's character is like saying like, oh, he's over the hill, he's yesterday's news, et cetera, et cetera. Everyone's like, whoa, yeah, nobody thinks that. We're gonna get out of here and let him kill.
He also gives that whole speech where he's like, "Oh, I disrespected the old man behind his back,
Yeah.
called him boner, said something else about him. Like he's like asshole one time, and he's like, but I always knew my place. And it's like, no, you didn't.
I know. I love how boner is like the most like R-rated word he could think of in that moment that would have annoyed his boss. Like I don't know if that's really a bad word now, but
That's so great.
Oh, geez, what a boner my boss is. Let me tell you.
It's like that famous Batman comic, Joker pulls a boner.
oh yeah.
Oh yeah. There's some great out of context comics from comic panels from that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, this is a great segue to how great the Bob Morton character is, right? Because remember, like these are competing projects. The Edward 209 and the Robert Kopp projects, and like. I think that it's so fantastic that like he's just like, oh no, I'm gonna get in and I'm gonna sneak it in, and like without even really having a candidate yet, and then like when they do it, like, and it was in one of the clips you played for us where it was like, oh, he's basically dead, we can do whatever we want. It's so key to this movie because again, them stripping of him of his humanity for literally doing his job. Whatever we want to say about police work, he was literally just doing his job, and then like they full on make him an automaton, and then he is able to regain it. That's an incredible. It's like Pinocchio or something. Yeah, to a certain degree, but like much more violent, even than the GDT version.
Well, and it's pretty much reminding you that like no matter what you feel about cops, I mean, and not all of us feel positively about them, there's still a level of humanity that this number one, the prime directives, but number two, that this technology and like ED209, he's like, oh, this is for urban pacification, which sounds almost benign until you realize they're just gonna send this into a ghetto And
yeah.
kill
They're
as
just
many
gonna
people as
blow. They
possible
get rid of all
criminals.
the black people. Yeah.
And like, so I think that the kind of it's a point taken almost that like at least in this
But then
context.
also Dick Jones is like offering Clarence Boddicker up, like, oh well, you can be king of this, you can have like all of like the profits from all this stuff. And it's like, whoa, talk about like, I mean, not that guy was going to be like a role model to begin with, but talk about a massive soft moment of like playing both sides against the middle. He doesn't care as long as he gets like the glory and gets, it's astounding. It's and it still could be made yesterday, and it still would hit.
Yeah, you were talking about the humanity of Murphy. We were talking about the scenes that we forgot, but like one of the scenes that I always forget about is the one where he's going through the home and the TVs are like turning and the music,
the kiosk realtor.
It's so good, and the music in this movie is incredible.
Yeah.
Like even the clips that you're showing, like you can hear it in the background in those like making of bits, but no more in that scene than when he's like having the flashbacks of his wife. It's beautiful. So another thing where they just were firing on all cylinders in this movie.
Basil Palladarius is a great composer. I mean, there's a lot of things he borrows from his other stuff. Like if you actually pay attention to his work, because Basil Palladarius is one of my go-tos whenever I'm doing art. Sometimes, I need instrumental music. Basil Palladarius is like one of my top 3.
Real Basil Palladarius fans will know. And he's like,
yes,
you hear that new record, and just
and also I just like the concept of there having nothing to do with the music, which is fantastic, and like the do 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 do. Everyone knows what that is when you sing it, if you know.
And they did use it in RoboCop too,
which is. If there was a RoboCop 2, then I would care about that. But the idea of the kiosk, like the kiosk realtor, right? I went to we were on tour. It was like Utah, I think. Did I tell the story on before? It seems like I might have. But they had a kiosk clerk where it was like somebody in India or something like on the TV screen, which is like, wow, are you gonna help me if like the toilet gets clogged up? Like, what is this here? But it is again another way that this movie is like super prescient, where it's like, oh, there's just this like lame automation that's like there for like a single purpose that is unable to understand anything beyond its current purpose. And of course that's done in other things as well. I mean, probably most blatantly in Idiocracy, but it's those things that exist. They actually exist now. And do they look cooler? Sure. And they're not on like CRT style, like beige or whatever, but like they actually exist. And to have that tied in, have it like an automaton, a computer, basically, a la Max Headroom or something, trying to sell him his own house while he's going through and re-experiencing the memories of the things that made him human. Holy moly.
Yeah, they
I
kind of
agree.
make fun of
It's a great scene.
something like that though in Rick and Morty, where they had the little machine, and he's like, "What is my purpose?" And he's like, "You churn butter," and the thing just sighs.
Well, and that's the more self-aware age that we live in now, right? But and like for better or for worse, but. I like that you get glimpses of other things that is doing automation. Meanwhile, the liquor store basically looks the same.
Yeah,
you don't change greatness, Liquor store with the bulletproof glass works.
I'm looking at Basil's filmography, and you mentioned that he didn't do RoboCop 2, or that piece of work is not in it. I didn't realize that he didn't do RoboCop 2. It has Leonard Rosenman, who did Barry Lyndon, Rebel Without a Cause, Planet of the Apes. Also an amazing filmography, but I don't even remember what the differences were in the RoboCop 2 score.
Yeah, but I can't remember any of the music from any of them, though.
It's like it's serviceable. It gets the job done, but it doesn't have any of those like. There's none of those high moments like when RoboCop comes bursting through like out of like a flaming car, and you want to hear da 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 da. Yeah, it's like that's one of the tricks that why everybody loves John Williams so much, because he did that and that kind of stuff in Star Wars.
Not this year, apparently. Boom! Too soon.
Oh yeah, but tell me, what was the moment where Steven Spielberg stand-in did something cool and they play like the really cool theme of
he's phoning it in, which is fine. He's John Williams. He's
like
he's just at that little editing machine. Like, so I know there's like
occasionally he'll just hey, he still occasionally does stuff over at the at Tanglewood, so good for him, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like look, I'm a rock musician of low to middle renown, and he's John Williams and wrote the Star Wars theme. I think he's doing okay.
A little better than Hans Zimmer. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, well, let's please no hate speech on this show for us. But yeah, like I mean, the music is very intrinsic to this, and that theme's part of it. Yeah, God, the gas station explosion. But I love that, like the small scale stakes of like of the thugs, where he's like, oh, and also I'm gonna fill up my tank too, and he's like kind of struggling to get it in and get the gun trained on him, and the guy's like studying for particle physics, or he's like studying.
They really did that explosion, I guess. Like that's not
amazing.
And I gotta try to find well, I gotta try to find the clip of this, but like they actually were kind of shocked by like how like
strong it was.
Yeah,
big explosion.
Like, I think even the stuntman in Robocop suit was wearing like almost double the Robocop padding. He looked a little bit bigger in that shot. Like just
he looked like he'd been working out or something. Yeah, totally. And he's already pretty beefy.
Maybe a little Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, maybe.
And
awesome.
We did go scout Detroit with Paul, although it did fairly well in the sort of seedy urban department. It didn't have any kind of futuristic skyline or any kind of modern look to it at all.
Robocop was shot in Dallas from August through October of 1986, which is like the most humid and the hottest, steamiest, nastiest time to be in that part of the world. The temperature on the days that they were shooting there was about 120 to 130 degrees inside. Peter was literally losing pounds of weight every day out of water dehydration. He was constantly having to be hydrated.
Peter had a mime coach by the name of Moni Yakim, and he wanted to work with Moni on practicing basic robotic moves and to create a character through movement. Peter and Moni rehearsed for many, many weeks before the start of filming. Rob Bottin was supposed to deliver the suit about 2 or 3 weeks before principal photography, but as these things go, the suit arrived on the day we needed it to be shot.
Rob was very much delayed because of our problems, isn't it? That we had created partially ourselves. And that's why the costume came so late to the set.
And it took Peter 11 hours to get into the suit the first time because everything needed to be fitted and adjusted and changed and shaved. So by the time Peter walked out of the trailer door 11 hours later, he was in a complete state because everything he had rehearsed with Moni didn't work in this suit.
We had a terrible time and we had to stop production because we got into a conflict. But the conflict was basically because he said, I can't do it. And I don't know how to walk. And basically, and we said, and the production said, well, I have to shoot, no time. And he said, well, but I didn't get time to practice. And we said, well, that's a pity. We have to shoot anyhow. It was so devastating. It was so frustrating, and we were so insensitive that we didn't understand that could not be done. It was only later that I realized that we had done something completely inappropriate, and that Peter Weller had all the right of the world to protest. And so ultimately, Mike Medavoy said, okay, let's stop a couple of days. And you work with Peter. So we started then to work with the system, with the costume, and we had the video camera. We showed it to him. And slowly he got the confidence and the ability to do it so that it looked good.
Paul Verhoeven and Rob Bottin weren't even speaking to each other during the entire course of the film. In fact, Rob stopped even coming down there at all and turned the whole thing over to what we call the Robo Team.
Action will be actively shooting, yes? Hey! Background!
We took over 10, 12 empty buildings and dressed them and then had them rigged to explode. We were all over the city blowing things up. We're on the news every night. Something was exploding or there was something going on.
Now fill it up on number 7.
Well, the explosion at the gas station was big enough that it did manage to set the building on fire. The fire department did threaten to shut us down. And our cameraman, Jos Picano, said, well, that explosion, I don't think it's registered on film. It wasn't really big enough, I think, for the camera to see. So we looked at the dailies, and what you see is what's in the film. Robocop was a terrible experience in the production. I mean, everyone had a terrible time.
That rules. Where to begin with any of that? That's amazing.
The idea that they wouldn't deliver the suit until day one of production due to various issues has got to be like the most frustrating thing in history for Peter Weller to not even be in it till day one.
Yeah, and then they're like, "No, got to shoot anyway," and he's like, "What?"
And
He's not even in it until
that time of year. That's always the dry part of the season.
Yeah,
he's not even in it until day one, and then he finally gets in it, and he's like, "Oh, this sucks too."
God, 11 hours.
Well, I love that they're basically being the Ruckus Society and Fight Club and just blowing up random stuff too, you know. And they were like, "What are they doing?"
Yeah, those rocket launcher scenes when they first get the SUXs, and they're just like those explosions look really close to those actors, those stunt people. Like that looks really dangerous, even in late 80s.
And it's not even like a written line that like makes the script like whatever or something. Like it just seems like they blew up the fucking car, and then he's like, "Let's go!" Like you know what I mean? Like it's like
he's got this car. He gets jealous at his henchman having the same car, and he blows it up. That's what he does. All right, great.
Give me your keys.
And I love the fact that they actually set up what that car is, so like we know it because we get the.
Did you see the ads? Yeah. Which the ads are bonkers and great too. Yeah.
Then you got Miller, the guy who's like holding the hostages, who's like, yeah, I want a nice car. How about one of those SUX 6000s? So like again, second time it's brought up. So like you're reminded.
Check off sports car. Yeah.
Yes.
and it's not even like out of all the. Out of all the ads in this, though, like that's the one that actually comes through. But like, there's stuff like the Nukem, which I mean, I love that scene.
The game, yeah. Where it's like, oh yeah, this is what board games are like in the future, which is pretty.
But that's kind of paired up with the fact that at one point there's just a throwaway thing where 2 ex-presidents just get blown up by something.
Yeah, by the laser, the malfunctioning laser.
Offhanded comment, yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's well, and you, Andy, you mentioned the congressman, which is like RoboCop's first like mission, right? Is to, or not the congressman, the city council guy. He's like, I want my old job back. That guy. I mean, that's based on Dan White too, which we covered Milk on the show. Like it seems like an eon ago, but yeah, that's clearly based on Dan White, which is amazing. Obviously, it's played up for like somewhat darkly comedic effect, but little things like that of just like having like that level of like delusion with it. But I love it. The commercials, like the commercial for the sports car, you see it, like you hear about it, like it's all through it. It's I love it. It's and then you see it and you're like, oh, okay, cool. I think some in the comments were saying they thought it was a real car, which I think is hilarious, but I mean, why not? I mean, it's so natural.
Yeah, those
6,000 sucks.
Right.
Yeah, it is SUX. You're right. It does.
The TV series picks up on those like tongue-in-cheek ad breaks too. They continue doing those in the TV series, and I think in some of the early episodes they do like a fundraiser for like dying soldiers. Like, let's bring our boys back. Let's put them on cryostasis. Let's freeze them. And they do a fundraiser, like save our boys. And then like the next week they revealed that they didn't make enough money. So all the soldiers died. And it was like, we didn't make enough money, but now on to the next news item. It was so funny.
Stevie early on, still waiting for the release of the 6000 SUX with reclining leather seats that goes really fast and gets really shitty gas mileage. Yeah. Making those ads had to have been like a blast too, because you're just like, let's just go like as over the top as we can with it, and it works.
And I think it reaches its I guess apotheosis or zenith or whatever you want, like the top of the line when Starship Troopers, where they do a similar idea, and they have literally like the Crossfire show. There's a perfect takedown of fucking American U.S. media and stuff, and it's
the yelling heads kind of show. Yeah, that format.
It's like the proto Tucker Carlson on CNN doing Crossfire, where he's just almost like a William F. Buckley type character or whatever. That's like, I find the idea of bugs that think frankly offensive. And like, right. And that's one of those moments that like it hammers it home that like, oh shit, like,
and she's like, oh well, there could be bugs we don't know about that do that. Preposterous,
but it's years before the Iraq War, where you literally will have like talking heads doing that with like just Muslims on TV.
Yeah, and you have like Carville and Tucker Carlson or whoever was it, Bagala? I don't remember who was that. That show was terrible. I'm glad Jon Stewart killed it.
Yes. But the thing that always fascinates me about those commercials is that this came out, this was filming the same time The Dark Knight Returns came out, where Frank Miller, who wrote the sequels that never came out, that he put that in The Dark Knight and as a part of world building, and they use it the exact same way in this movie. They still keep the commercials in the second one, but they don't add anything to the movie other than like, oh, it's John Glover.
Well, I think Alan Moore did that with Watchmen too. I mean, earlier on, where you have like the TVs going and like other things of media. I mean, it's like what I'm not taking away Frank Miller. Yeah. But I mean, it makes sense because remember at the time, conspicuous consumption and all that, and like they're selling all this sugary cereal to kids on Saturday mornings, and then this and that, and like that was like the big moral panic. That's when the moral majority was like coming out, like.
And Alan Moore also did that in V for Vendetta.
Yes.
So this is Verhoeven talking about why he came up with the idea to do those news clips.
Cool.
Which I kind of found kind of fascinating. I just remember this right now. Last night I cut a bunch of clips, but like. That I found of him talking, but they did a retrospective pretty recently where he went to New York Film, like he got to speak like and show his films, and like they showed Starship Troopers, they did a live showing, they showed Robocop, and I can't remember.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
I guess my invite got lost in the mail.
You mentioned Mondrian. Can you talk a little bit about?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not something that I didn't really invent. There were this basically in the script. When I got the script, there were really this, let's say, interventions. I would say in the main narrative. The main narrative is about Robocop, but let's say there are the commercials and certain issues of the news and whatever about the American presidents in space and whatever. I mean, these elements were already there. I mean, so. When I got the script, I felt that they should be there as abruptly as possible, that they would not really be somebody is in a room and you see the television is on and then you see what's on the television. I felt it would be really modern and to cut it right into the main narrative, interrupt the main narrative, show this kind of commercials or newsreels, and cut back to the narrative. And I based that really on my admiration for a Dutch-American artist, painter, Mondrian, who, if you know his work, basically works with these squares of blue and red and green and whatever. But then let's say there are very sharp black lines in between, like chuck, black, and then there are these squares there. Yeah? It's all abstract art, and I felt that this movie should do the same. That it would not prepare you for television news or whatever. It would just throw it in your face. And of course, I was coming to the United States was anyhow completely coming from a European. Dutch background. I was completely taken aback by showing terrible news, basically on the level of the rocket that exploded at that time, and then basically intercut by a commercial. I mean, there shows a tragedy and extremely emotional news. And then basically suddenly you get in between, and that was so non-European. They would never do that at that time. Of course, now they follow the American, American cultural imperialism is all over the world. Of course, we know that, So, but we also in Holland and in the whole of Europe, everybody has followed that example. So, but for me, it was really at that time saying, okay, I'm going to do something really. Of something that is, let's say, in movie making, it has not been done. I mean, in the news, in television, you could see it anyhow, but it was not basically used as an art form. I think I used it a bit more for structure and innovation.
Yeah, I have no notes. I agree.
No.
Good on you, Paul.
One little note, though, Piet Mondrian was very, very popular at that point in the 80s, too. Like, I remember there was a print shop at the malls that you could go into. Like, every mall had one of those. And you could buy, prints of famous artworks to hang up in your living room. And that was, his stuff was very, very, very much of that time. And everybody, emulated it. But, I mean, there are these basic, just colors with these black lines. I mean, it's, you know it when you see it. I think didn't New Order, like one of their last albums, did something like that for their cover?
Yeah, I think so. What? That's just what was that to do with anything? I'm sorry. Did I miss
Yeah, that's the
something?
thing he was referring to.
Paul was referring to that kind of like quick.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, gotcha. Okay, cool. All right. We can we can change this now. Let's see, where's the other one? Come on, there's too many of these now. Boon Camp. Nope, that's not it. Yeah. Well, it's like diegetic culture almost, right? Like he has it just like in the ether, and I think it works so well. And I think that's become naturalized. I think there's a lot of filmmakers have like kind of, but I'm trying to think if I've seen a movie like really do that to that level where it's like, again, at that time over the top. But he makes a good point. I saw the Challenger. I was in like whatever grade school I was in, and they wheeled in the television and they showed it, and they did cut to commercial eventually, and it was like, that was really bizarre, and like nobody knew what to say, and so everyone just like sat around awkwardly. It was, but like it was like a Pepsi commercial or something immediately afterwards, which is like insane. So I can imagine coming from like, you know, maybe a civilized culture where they wouldn't do something like that and just be finding it cartoonish.
Well, and I mean, you know, it's news as a commodity, which is something that's different than, let's say, even like the BBC, where they go around and kind of, you know, everyone has to pay a certain amount of money for state media, basically. Here, news is just a commodity like anything else. So, and they're not really going along with it, where it's like, I mean, sometimes they'll have like a climate crisis thing, and then they'll be like, brought to you by Exxon and Gulf, and it's like, oh,
right,
like,
yeah, I know, Raytheon, yeah.
Well, like, I remember during Obama's oil, like during the Obama era, where there was like that massive oil spill in the Gulf.
Yeah,
they had like an Exxon commercial right after that. Like,
right.
That was...
Read the room.
Well, because the thing is that they don't correspond with the news companies about what they're going to talk about.
Right.
So it kind of makes it so that these, like, you know, these really happy commercials can come on right after something like the Challenger explosion or something like.
And also hitting back to the earlier point, this same year, broadcast news comes out, which we did. Of course, we did a classic episode of JB on that. Now classic. But like the idea of news and entertainment being like melded, and like, you know, the like, oh, you know, everyone being upset about like, well, that's not journalism, that's not news, et cetera, the Albert Brooks character, and then like having those lines start to be blurred, that of course were mastered during the 90s and 2000s. That like to have that light entertainment, like the fact that it's Entertainment Tonight. Wow, what's her name? Mary Hart. Who's one of like the newscasters? Lisa Gibbons. That's right. Yeah. Who's Mary Hart? Mary Hart. Someone.
Mary Hart was definitely on one of those. Yeah.
The other person from. It was like she was the person when Mary Hart couldn't show up.
She was that's right. Like covering the celebrities, right?
The role of Mary Hart will be played by
this shark. They're like the newscasters, and that also was predictive of cultural trends as well, where it's like, oh yeah, people are like, oh no, they're not investigative journalists, they're there to look pretty.
And then she had a daytime talk show with John Tesh.
John Tesh. You ever seen John Tesh live at Red Rocks? It's incredible. Every so often I put that on YouTube, and it's one of the most surreal experiences you can have.
It's pretty wild. I remember like someone's like, oh yeah, he has a whole music career. I'm like,
yeah,
doing what? What is he doing?
He has the most milquetoast concerts. He had like gymnasts playing while he's playing songs and stuff. It's insane.
It's like Middle Manager soundtracks.
Song. You know, na 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 na.
That was him. He composed that.
Oh,
props. That's a good theme song. As someone who composes theme songs,
No,
respect.
Yeah, he has this really. I love John Tesh because he has this wacky sense of humor. And on that daytime talk show that he had was nuts, because like he would do things like they interviewed a guy who was a dumpster diver, and he'd like try to smell him like through the entire interview.
I need to add this to my YouTube watch list after this episode.
Turn this off and go watch some John Tesh clips, I guess, from Entertainment Tonight. I'm just missing out. Getting back to the meat of the matter with Robocop, like the having all this be like, is that by the way, is that a thing? Like the diegetic video? Is that a thing? Because I'm gonna make it a thing, where it's like it just in like with everything else happening, it makes this an all pervasive atmosphere that adds to the low grade dystopia, not the high grade dystopia of like The Road or something along those lines. It's like, oh no, things are just vaguely crappy, and like here's like all of these things that are like, you know, the next, again, stuff that was considered massively science fiction then, that are just, you know, oh yeah, there's a thing that does that now. It works to set the scene just as well as like the Clarence Boddicker character being like, of course a guy like this came up and like started to rule the roost, right? And by the way, can we just give a shout out for Ray Wise, by the way, who's great in this as the thug that is like, he goes to the club, this thug, but like, yeah, young Leland Palmer eating it up, man.
Yeah,
Ray Wise
so
is
good.
great.
So good when he yells when he sees RoboCop, just incredible. Yeah, all-star performance. So funny.
And it does, and I feel like it takes advantage of like, I call it the R gang syndrome, where you have like the henchmen, and there's like, oh well, there's the black one, and there's, you know, this, like everyone's got like, you know, everyone's represented, which is strangely almost appropriate for today's day and age.
Crime's gone woke.
Yeah, that woke movie RoboCop.
Well, I mean, it mirrors in this movie. It mirrors the corporate side of it, right? Where it's like, there's the black guy at the table and the stock executives, and like, you know, like one woman that he jumps on the lap, or that jumps on his lap when the guy gets shot. Like, it's kind of the same blandly diverse corporate board that, you know.
Yeah.
But also, you know, they went woke and then they burned the money, so they went broke.
Well done, Andy. Well done. That was good.
You know what they say: go woke, go broke.
I like. Speaking of,
so when you talk about low grade and high grade dystopia, it's kind of fascinating that like the reason that Detroit's allowed to, number one, get to this level in this movie, and like you realize throughout it because of these news clips, like the reason it's allowed to get to this level in this movie and be bought by Omni probably is that, you know, the whole world's gotten so insane and degraded at this point that Detroit is just a symptom of everything else, right? Like, it's like, well,
we need
why
a
not?
public-private partnership is what we need. That'll solve it.
Mhm. I mean, so many, like, you could say the same thing about so many tech corporations, like buying up so many things and expanding. Like, that was another thing it just kind of like had the forethought of. Like, you could say like any, you know, Silicon Valley company, like starting their own X or starting their own convenience store now, where you don't have to talk to anybody. You can just go in and check out, or like starting their own healthcare company. It's like literally every product could be built by random tech company. And
I mean,
like
it's multinational. It's multinational corporation as
They would just call it like Eater or something, like EATR or something. That probably exists. What am I?
It's
I mean,
it's multinational corporation as empire, right? Like, like an omnidirectional isn't, or Omni is like interesting because it's Omni consumer products. It's all consumer products. You know what I mean? Like they're making toasters, they're making like microwaves, like they're making just normal consumer products. They're selling houses. Like, why not just keep expanding your markets? Like, oh well, we could have an X division. We could have a, you know, a giant, terrifying police militarization division.
Maybe
like,
it was a play on GE at the time, because GE had its hand in also like literally everything around this time frame.
And that's back when they were
got
more
the houses with the TV in them. GE did the thing that Reagan originally lived in, where they would have the commercials up between things, where it was like he would walk through the house, he'd be like, "Wow, look at all these gizmos! Oh, a TV in the house! Oh, it's this!" Like that was that's what that house reminds me of, his house, but like, you know, they're trying to sell it out.
Well, and they end up giving like the lines to AT&T. They own the lines, like things along those. I mean, and there was like the whole Pacific Bell thing, and like the baby bells, and like the breakup, and then the reorganization, et cetera, whatever. Follow me on for my TED talk about this. But all I'm saying is that like this is very predictive in a lot of ways. I agree that like it's one of the reasons why it resonates as a film, where it's like, you know, other than the styles obviously are not contemporary, but the problems are like the police. Right, the police go on strike, right, which is like crazy, like, and it's something where it's presented as like, well, you can't go on the strike, you're the police department, that isn't done. But like, how else are they gonna, like, if they don't hurt the corporate profits, how else will they get what they need? You know,
it's weird. That's the only thing that doesn't hold up in this movie, is that the police union acts like an actual union as opposed to
well, in the 70s, there were quite a few times when the police actually did go on strike in major cities. As a last resort thing, you know, because of contracts. In this case, though, it's interesting that, like, obviously the police are the lesser evil in this sense, and like Omni is when they're actually going against strike. You know, going on strike against is the greater evil, and they've lost to it.
That reminds me of
and
that.
then, of course, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say
Go ahead.
Slim. We have a bit. We've never fully realized that we came up with on the French Connection of the bad lieutenant scale of cops. There would be like D&D alignments. So you'd put like whatever Robocop would be over on like the principled side, and then you have like total degenerate Harvey Keitel over like the diabolic side, like so on and so on. You place all the various cops in various films in there. Still haven't done it. I was gonna do it today, and I took a nap instead. Good idea. Anyway,
Jimmy Doyle in The French Connection is one of the worst, most annoying characters I think I remember ever seeing. I think I was rooting for the drug dealers like by the third of that movie so hard.
Well, he really generated tourism
I have
to
not.
Poughkeepsie, so I don't I don't mind him completely.
The second one is basically his character getting tortured by French drug dealers. It's
I love it. I need to
pretty
see
great.
it now.
It's pretty cool.
Also, it's pretty awesome that the final like moment of that movie is that the drug dealer gets away, and it's like, dude, you weren't even good at doing your job. Like,
you had one job.
And he just like says, and he's like, well, we got most of them, and it's like, all right, well, that guy's just gonna go get more friends.
Well, and after he shoots his partner too. But anyway, that's the French Connection. Go watch that Now Classic episode to hear all about that. We light him up there too.
And join the Patreon to hear our bonus episode for that one, because that one.
There we go, Andy. Perfect. I would indeed buy that for $1. But before we do one-liners, can we just give a shout out for Nancy Allen? I think she does a great job on here.
Yeah.
As Ann Lewis. I think that's again part of the grounding of RoboCop and his humanity. Like that's an important character. I think she does a great job, and it does trip me out because it wasn't until those clips and like some of the bonus footage on the DVD where it's like, oh yeah, she was kind of more known for being like in Carrie as like one of the worst people. Yeah, exactly. And she's in Blowout too, if I remember correctly.
That same kind of, and it's interesting that it was an accident that she ended up in this movie, kind of like a second casting choice, because it's kind of fascinating that the same thing that they do with this, where she's kind of known for one thing, and they like pull a lot of people in from that. When they do Starship Troopers a few years later, they literally go out of their way to find kind of just degraded like teen actors or whatever that were like on all those shows, and they like try to pull those people in, but like on purpose to try to turn it into like this bad fascist documentary that they're making for propaganda purposes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she has an amazing first scene where she destroys that guy in the precinct. Her helping Murphy at the end, like realign his aim on when they're shooting the baby food. Such a great scene, just the kind of like personal moment together. Yeah, she's amazing in this movie.
Yeah, she's really good. And I feel like it gets lost with all of the. I mean, good Lord, Clarence Boddicker has to be one of the greatest movie villains of all time, right? Like, I mean, there's some big scene chewing that happens there, as we established.
Definitely one of the greatest second string movie villains, right?
Right. Well, exactly. He's not even the main one. Steve Jones. Yeah, it's Ronnie Cox. But the thing is, like, Ronnie Cox is like low grade evil, where it's sort of like, he's like a Karl Rove type or something, where he's not as overt about it. But like, but Clarence Boddicker is like he's like from the get go. Again, as mentioned in the comments earlier, he spits blood in their face. Like this guy, it's like this, but he's so like again cartoonish. I like this like cartoonish, but like it works so well. It's so funny that it ends up being like the dad. And was it that 70s show? Is that what it was? That it was the dad? Amazing.
Which is another show that tackles, a show that tackles the industrialization. He loses his job at the plant. And so like you can almost draw a through line where it's like,
this is the secret prequel.
First he loses his job at the plant in the 70s, and then he moves to Detroit, and he's like, I'm gonna get a job in the the auto manufacturing industry, and then that collapses and he becomes a drug lord.
Yeah, there you go. It's all connected, people.
I also got such a kick out of when he runs in, he says, "Bitches, get out!" And because I watched so much of that 70s show as a kid, because they didn't have cable, but all the episodes were on YouTube and like online for free. So I'd watch that 70s show all the time, and I just imagined Red coming into Eric's room in that 70s show, going, "Bitches, get out!"
But it's just Kelso and Hyde.
There you go. That's the way you do it. That's how you make it woke, apparently. Are we doing one-liners? You want to do them?
Yeah, I wish we could do like some kind of drum roll, because we have Slim with us, and
we do. First time we've ever had someone from Letterboxd doing this.
It's an honor. It's an honor to be here for this segment.
So, So Letterboxd, of course, is a social media website that is it's a place for film lovers to congregate, to talk at with and to each other about the films they love, maybe the films that they didn't love, the films that they would buy that for $1 for. And of course, this is a bottom-up democracy. Everyone gets to have their say, not just Siskel's and Eberts of the world. Everybody gets to chime it in, but you got to keep it succinct if you want to get on this bit, because that's what this bit is. We react to these, and these are the Letterboxd one-liners for Robocop. Let's go, Forrest. Just order my box of Nukem for the kids. I would play that, by the way.
Yeah, it makes it sound very fun, but then you think about it. I also, it's interesting in the wake of discussions about Ukrainian military aid and stuff. And the guy just goes, "That's it, son. No more aid for you."
Right, exactly.
Also,
By the way,
how amazing is that poster too? That's the poster
I was just
that
gonna say,
have.
you have the custom poster of this where it's the RoboCop Jesus. I love that.
RoboCop being crucified. I love it. I mean,
So
doesn't and he's got the crown of thorns on his head too, and it's on fire. It's so amazing.
So amazing.
Truly Reagan Jesus.
Bobby could not, in fact, fly.
That's the line where he chews the scenery up the most. It's amazing. He goes, "You ever fly, Bobby?"
Yeah, well, he says like Bobby said at the beginning and the end of that sentence. He's like, "Bobby, can you fly, Bobby?" It's just like, I love it. Right in my vein.
It's Red Foreman. It's Red Foreman when he gets like the world's worst coke habit.
Can you fly?
Dude was murdered and he still went to work.
People today would never. Nobody wants to work anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why they can't remake it. That's why they wouldn't dare.
Nobody would believe this today.
Nobody would do it. Yeah. When RoboCop shot a rapist stick off, I knew it was going to be peak. That is facts.
That's another scene. Cartoonish fucking henchman type villains. Like Detroit is full of just the most like cartoonish possible I guess multiracial, multi-ethnic crews of villains that you'll ever see in your life. It's like
that was another standout for me as a kid though, for sure, where I was like, oh, whoa.
Yeah. Also, the shot of like the Delta City billboard in the background, like the juxtaposition of like the future city that's just so clean, and then this happening like right in front of it.
And then there does a thing like, "I have called a rape crisis counselor," where he's just like, it's so amazing. It's
a real cop would never, but
yeah, well, yeah. Bring back women with comically oversized but stylish glasses.
They tried for a little bit in like 2011 and 2012. They had like they tried to bring back those glasses as an aesthetic.
But the one scientist woman who like gets drunk and plants one on RoboCop.
Oh yeah, she was great.
Yeah, those great glasses.
Bring back scientists like that.
I watch it for free on YouTube, only to find out all the naughty words and epic violence was cut out. If only I bought it for $1.
I see reading this when I was doing this last night. I didn't know where this one was going, and I was like, okay.
By the way, can we shout out this username, which is fantastic? Shadow the Herzog. Oh, excellent.
That is so good.
Well done. Never have I seen so many men with awful hairlines in such a short space of time.
It was a different time. Yeah, it was the 80s. You could be like a sex icon you could be bald, balding, bad hairline.
Look at Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
He was a sex symbol somehow.
Patrick Stewart.
That's true. That's right. He was already starting to go in Dune. You're right. I forgot about that. An inspiring tale of how a handicapped man returns to and excels in the workforce. There we go. Those are the Letterboxd one-liners for RoboCop. Please follow the show. That's RoboFlock over there under Movie Night Extravaganza. That's his username. Go follow him. He is the Omni Consumer Legal Counsel, so he will sort you out for anything you need. I, of course, am Conan Neutron. I will indeed buy that for $1. And you are getting the highbrow, the midbrow, the populist stuff. It's all there. Follow the Criterion Challenge with me. That's good stuff. J. Andrew World is down with OCP. Yeah, you know me. And you want to see all the weirdest stuff in the world. He's doing it all. He's logging it all somehow and watching it, so you don't have to. Or maybe so you can. I'm not here to judge. I'm just here just reporting the bit. And then, of course, your old pal Slim, a.k.a. Mr. Letterboxd himself. Have you heard of the site, Slim? You heard of the site? Yeah.
So no, I will refute the phrase Mr. Letterboxd, but
Mr.
I do love it.
Letterboxd.
I use it every time. It's a
You're
great
Mr.
website.
Letterboxd in my heart.
Oh,
That-
thank
that's-
you.
that's what I gotta
I'll allow it. Thank you very much.
I
Mr. Letterboxd, he's on there reviewing films.
I follow Slim. I don't know if he follows me or not.
Oh shit. Okay, I gotta look. Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I crossed the threshold. I'm one of those users that has like a sort of following on Letterboxd, so I turned off notifications for follows because now we have a new feature where you can turn off notifications except for your friends, like people you already follow.
Oh, interesting.
So if you're
Okay.
interested in kind of cutting out the noise, which I obviously have because now I need to see who's followed me in the last last recent era.
See, Andy can't cut out the noise because that's his entire feed.
You ever have friends that are like, Slim, listen, how's this for a film review? How's this? And they like, there's a kind of drug you just like pitch you there like a couple line review of something. You have to be like, that's great. We would totally highlight that. Yes.
I gotta go do literally anything else than other than being
No. I mean, I think I'm pretty lucky in that most of my friends will have like good ideas for like feature requests. Like the feature that I mentioned just now about like only
that's
getting
awesome.
notifications for rent. That was one of my ideas. And I pitched it to Matt, I think, at one point, and he's like, "Hey, here's that idea that you pitched like a year ago. It's finally out."
I like that shuffle function. That's a cool.
That's
we can
fun.
watch list. That's a good.
Yeah. It also forces me to watch movies that are on my watch list because I have a bunch of junk on there that I forgot I added, and then I start to watch it and I realize what the hell was I thinking adding this? Like I just watched that Greystoke Christopher Lambert Tarzan movie.
Oh, right. I saw the theater when I was 7. So,
Of course he did, Andy. Of course he did. Nobody's surprised by that statement.
Not a great movie. IMO as a first time viewing in 2023. Not fantastic.
There was no great shakes in the 90s.
I don't know how it stood up back then.
came out.
Yeah. I didn't see it when it came out like Andy, but when I saw it, I was like,
Right. But no, not many people pitch me on reviews. I think the only thing I get feature suggestions, and I think Letterboxd has historically been slow to add features just because we've been pretty content with how it works. And we don't want to be like a crazy feature-driven, app, but we're slowly starting to make progress on that.
Well, you can see how badly being feature-driven, I guess, can go with Mr. Musk over there, who every week
literally
has,
the worst product
some
manager
kind
in the
of-
history of technology.
Yeah. Well, and you know the people like weird conservative media people are like just DMing him, do this, and he's like, yeah, yes, okay, and like does it, and everyone's like, I hate this. Fuck you.
This is
Elon
terrible.
Musk.
Stop doing
Like,
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awful.
Can I just say? And usually, by the way, I close this bit off a lot quicker. But since you're here, I have to give Letterboxd credit that when the pandemic hit, I started off on Letterboxd just as like I can never remember the movies I wanted to see. So like literally the watch list function. That's why like my Instagram log is who watches the watch list. Which is me. But like then I found a great community of people. We just did the Oscars stream with Lauren Chenard, Lonely Goat Herd, who I only know from Letterboxd. She's a gem. We love her. She's a regular on the show. Lots of other people that we know from that world have been on the show, Zach Marsh, so on and so on. But it kind of reignited the fact that like, oh yeah, I'm really into this, because there was a big length of time for about 10 years where I was like just not really watching a lot of movies and just, it was fine. It was still a big part of my life, but like I started closed circuit. So it really did kind of reignite my love for film, and then led to me being on this show right now with you. So
there you go. I mean,
There you go.
like we've talked about it in the past, but I think the pandemic, a lot of people had the same thought. Like I actually really love movies, and I have fun making lists. I have fun logging what I watch. I have fun rating movies. Like I think there's an article in the New York Times where we had maybe like under 2 million members before the pandemic started, and now we're at like 8. Like so many people have felt the same way. Like I love doing this. This is fun. I love talking with my friends about movies. Because I'm the same way. Like I started 70mm with my buddies because I was using Letterboxd. and I was like,
which
this
is a great show.
this
I
is
actually
fun.
listen to that show, which I don't
thank
listen to
you.
a lot of other movie shows,
Thank
but
you.
I like your show.
Thank you.
And I don't just say that to any other movie show that comes on. There's actually like maybe 5 I listen to, and that's like low for me.
But I think
Well, you'd be saying that to too many guests. You'd be like, yeah,
right.
I listen to the movie show all the time. Yeah,
I believe me. There's others that I listen to and I don't talk about them. I'll put it that
Sure.
way.
There's a I mean, that the bit when we started the show was like finally a podcast about movies, just because we knew that there were no shortage of movies podcasts with many middle-aged white men.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah, finally we
There's
did
that
it.
podcast,
The first one ever. And I think
we
that's
gotta
why
have diverse voices. You know,
but it's also like why I feel like when people make podcasts, they have to do something different. Like when the show opens, I mean, what other podcasts are doing that introduction to the movie itself? Like that kind of work. So I always felt like,
and he does a great credit where credit's due, and I probably never tell him this, but he does great work with that. So
absolutely.
yeah.
I learned something in the 10 minutes that I was watching it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I watched all
this
those
is like a little
Robocop
mini-
features, and I
it's
didn't
like a
learn any of
little
that.
mini feature. This little mini.
By the way, I did
documentary.
that one in 2 days. It was like the crazy turnaround time for that.
With a storm warning, people. There was a
Right.
storm.
No, it was a storm.
Jeez.
A storm hit. The storm was very much in process while I was doing that. My lights actually went on and off last night at 3 a.m. really fast.
Under
And I was
duress.
like, oh man.
So Sherry Prime said, I just joined Letterboxd.
Just joined
this week.
Letterboxd this week.
Amazing. And one of the things, like, there's so many different ways to use Letterboxd. You don't have to follow a ton of people. You can just use a private diary entry to write what you're watching, and that's it. Or you can use it any number of ways.
That's literally how I started, and it was just like watch the list. I'm like, oh, I'll keep track of this, and then I'd be like, hey, have I seen that? I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. And then like I like a lot of things, I dove in pretty deep, unfortunately, but or fortunately, depending on if you like the show or not. But yeah, it's one of the only social media sites I like. I don't know if it's technically a social media site, but and I even bought these Nudniks pro.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, which probably expires soon.
Yeah.
Because I want to encourage them to be on it too. So
that's great.
I mean, I like that it like is a lot of times like after watching a movie, I'm like, well, at least I get to like write something about this now and try to come up with something. Like it gives you an impetus to want to watch more stuff for sure.
I love yeah, sure. That's like the thing I go to. Like right now, Ving Rhames is my most watched actor this year.
What series are you watching that has placed him at the top, or is it just his
Mission Impossible movies?
Mission Impossible.
Oh, okay. Well, you can do worse than Ving Rhames.
I mean, honestly, people like anytime a Fast movie comes out, I'm sure Vin Diesel jumps to the top of their like stats anytime one of those movies comes out because they do a rewatch and your stats are all skewed thanks to that franchise.
But last year it was Statham for some reason. I don't even get that one.
Were you watching a lot of what was it? Crank? Is that that's
like
series?
Crank.
Because we did Dead or Alive, and Crank is kind of like in that vein.
You're right. Crank is kind of the American Dead or Alive, weirdly with a more sane ending, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, because that
and the sequel's batshit too, which is a lot of fun. I mean,
well, Andy, instead of telling us about that, why don't you do the plugs?
Hey, that's
Day
a great
Under
idea.
World, and I'm with OCP. Let's go. You know me.
You're watching us on YouTube right now. Please do the YouTube things like comment, subscribe, hit that bell, and the big ask is to watch the video to the end. You get that great Kona Neutron song, and that helps us be discovered by other movie fans. Which
suck it, John Tesh.
Yes.
I really didn't know he wrote that theme song. That's actually really good.
No. I had this weird obsession with him in high school, and I'm not even going to get into it.
Okay. We'll save it for the after party. There's no after party tonight.
No. But also we're on Twitch, so please do the Twitch things. Throw us a sub. If you have an Amazon Prime account, you can subscribe for free, and that doesn't cost you a penny, but that really does help us out. So please, if you can, do that. We're on various different social media sites. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We do have a Twitter community. I've been ignoring it because I've been busy making artwork for other stuff.
Yeah, you've been pretty busy, dude.
Yeah. My God, yeah. No, I've been drawing Noam Chomsky while we've been talking. So
busiest man in art.
Yeah. But yeah. Find us on.
Sometimes it's fun, as much fun as a dying medium is. It's a blast.
but you can certainly find us on any of those sites, and sometimes we play video on some of the sites too. But we do have a Patreon if you want to help us out some more. And the Patreon gives you the big thing of being able to get those after parties, like that one we were talking about for
French Connection.
French Connection, right?
Which,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the Bad Lieutenant skill. That's a genius bit. How do I know that? I came up with it.
Yeah. Well, while we're doing like the Fred Flintstone.
The Fred Flintstone. Oh my God. So Slim, we came up with a bit that was French Connection, but with Fred Flintstone.
Yeah, because they
like
almost
it.
cast what's the guy who voiced Fred Flintstone as Popeye Doyle.
Yeah. Amazing. That went on for quite a while. I remember that very well. It was good.
Yes. It's a lot of chaotic fun and definitely something to check out, and great reason to subscribe to see what the hell we are actually talking about.
That's the pitch, huh? Okay.
That's the pitch. Yes.
Even
There
if
we
you
go.
subscribe, I'm not sure you're gonna know what the hell we're talking about.
Look, I'm on the show and I barely know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why it says what they talking about now.
I was like, I didn't know. I was like, I don't know what he's talking about. I'm gonna put it on.
Our Fred Flintstone French Connection thing came out of imagining him going through that car chase, but he had
but he had to do the feet.
Yeah.
He had to do the feet, but while he was doing it. Yeah, that's classic.
He had like the bird gun.
Yeah.
It was just
Now it's coming back to me. Yeah.
it was pure nuts. But you had on Protonic Reversal recently, your great music show. You had Donna Diane from
Juna. Yeah, it's a great episode.
Who's also going to be at Caterwall.
Who's also gonna be Caterwall, yeah, and her new record, Femina Friends, is great. It's a really detailed song by song breakdown. Donna's a gem; she's the best. So it's a great episode. This week, John Darnell of the Mountain Goats. So if you know the Mountain Goats, and the people that know the Mountain Goats are really into the Mountain Goats, well, I get a crack. Let's go.
Yeah, Mountain Goat fans are like born. You're not. You don't just become a fan like that. You're
You're born into it. Molded.
You're like Bane.
Yes, absolutely. Tom Hardy will do the announcing.
Yes.
This is Caterwall. That's what we're talking about over there.
Yes, which is going to feature not only Juna.
Don't read all the bands. We'll be all right.
But Brandon Newton of the Secret Friend.
Oh yeah. There you go. Read my band. Yes.
There too.
Yes.
As well as Action Chief.
Action Chief is playing a rare live set as well. That's Friday. Secret Friends are on Saturday. It's packed.
Is it just going to be a set of solos, or is it going to?
It's just the solos, it turns out. That's the name of the record, Slim. That's why that's funny. Don't you love when someone explains why something's funny? I think it's great.
Yeah. But you know what, though? If you want to hear that, you can find it on Bandcamp. So you can go to Neutron Friends. .bandcamp. NeutronFriends.bandcamp.com. And then you can get the Dangerous Nomenclature, and I think it's just actionchief.bandcamp.com.
Actionchief.bandcamp.com. Yeah, there's like art prints that you can get with the CD too, but there's no vinyl of Action Chief. But yeah, go buy all that stuff. Thanks.
Yeah.
Please and thank you. We're recording next week, so I need the money.
Christina couldn't join us, but I always like to plug her coffee. Go to kofi.com/cosmopolitics and help her out, buy her a coffee.
Have you heard of this, Slim?
Coffee or Kofi? My buddies use it. My
Kofi
buddies
Anand.
use it for their podcast too.
KofiAnon.net, right?
Yeah.
I never know how to pronounce it. They call it Kofi, but it makes in my mind it should be coffee.
It should be coffee.
But, I don't.
Well, it doesn't make sense to be like, yo, go buy me a Kofi. Like,
yeah.
Like, are you having a stroke?
But
like,
I also, it's too late for me to say anything about the pronunciation because they've been going too far with Kofi, so I'm just gonna have to deal with it.
It's sunk costs.
Yes.
It's Kofi 2020.
Anyway, give Christina money. She's a gem, and we love her even if she's not here.
No matter how you pronounce it. I don't know.
No matter how you pronounce it. I love her. She's great. See?
Exactly.
Give her some Monet. Is that?
That's well done. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. And Slim's here, and you all should check out Weekend Watch List as well as the Letterboxd Show, and of course, his show 70mm, which all
podcast king.
All things you can do. And I did actually do the math for people in America. 70mm is 2 inches and 3/4.
Otherwise, I never would have found the podcast. They're going to do the conversion in iTunes, and they'll find it now.
Oh, I'm so glad I brought this this ruler to the Apple Store. I don't
Metric system, not on my watch.
That's right.
Yeah, no, he just that way our Canadian listeners can find you, and our American listeners can find you.
There you go. Got out of it. So Slim's real busy in the podcast world. Tape deck, is what you call it, right?
Tape deck. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And 70mm is really good. The Letterboxd Show is great. I know you produced the award show that Mia's been doing as well, which is also good.
A lot of fun. Yeah, the Best in Show. I think I'm not sure when this will post. Probably we have one more episode left of Best in Show. It's like a limited series for folks that enjoy award shows, or like me that I don't watch award shows. So we try to gear it towards both, to make it kind of informative. Like, I don't know anything about most award shows, to be honest. So I watch.
It's a good balance.
I watch On Cinema with Tim Heidecker and Greg Turkington. I don't watch the Oscars necessarily, but thank you. Yeah, we try to strike that balance, and then I think in a little bit we'll think about if the 4 favorites themed episodes where we interview guests with their 4 fave movies, maybe that will come back maybe in a few months. But yeah, a lot of fun.
You know my handle. I'm
That's right. I have to follow you after this episode.
I really put the pressure on.
I know. Yeah, the pressure is real.
I like the idea though that you're you're working your way up the chain. You're I'm gonna try to get everybody to follow me on Letterboxd.
Yeah, it's like the longest game in existence, right? I'm to build an audience by having them be on the show. We do enough episodes of this.
You start with Matthew Film Guy and his pretty big Letterboxd following, and you work your way up to Slim.
So what he's talking about, they do this thing where they get a director or something, somebody you would know, and then they ask, how they do the 4 favorites. If you know Letterboxd, and if you watch the show, I know how you don't, but then they'll have their 4 favorites and they'll talk about them. And it's really cool. Those do some statistics on it and stuff. Really interesting. Even when it's someone you've heard be interviewed a million times.
Yeah, most of the time it's movies I haven't seen, and
because people come up with some wild stuff too. Yeah.
And it's also a good opportunity to check those boxes for movies that most cinephiles have seen. And then I'll just be frank, this is the first time I've seen this, and everyone just craps their pants. But it's, it's a fresh perspective on some of those movies.
I saw one where, I saw a live thing they did on the red carpet where they asked people their 4 faves or whatever. And I forget who they asked, but that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, we've been doing, when we get to red carpets and stuff, we try to come up with a warm-up question for the quote-unquote talent. We'll ask them what the first award they ever won in their life, and that's usually a fun icebreaker. And then we'll ask them their 4 faves, and it's always varying. You can get some real film nerds that would reference something most people have not seen, but maybe the hardcore Letterboxd users have, and that really resonate with. Or you'll get someone that loves watching Hook. For God's sake, they Hook is one of the movies they grew up with, and it's one of their 4 faves, or Jurassic Park, and there's all different types of movie watchers. That's for sure.
My warm-up question from if I pitched it on the fly, have you ever seen a dead body? And then the person's real weirded out, and then when you go into asking them normal question, they're oh, maybe this person's a little bit normal, and I just got a weird first interaction with them.
The PR would move them so fast you wouldn't even get to your second question. You'd probably be barred from the red carpet for the future.
Is that why Bill bodied you in that interview?
Yeah.
Is that what you asked him? That's great.
Hey, Bill Pullman, you ever seen a dead body?
What's with this kid? Anyway, it's a great bit on a show that is not this show. This is still the bits, believe it or not. But I recommend that as well.
This is our new album, Just the Bits.
Just the plugs, apparently. Jesus. No, that's good. I wasn't thinking about it.
But Slim.
Wait, was that it? Was that Andy? Do you have anything that you?
I mean, the other thing would be check out Give Them an Argument last night, where we had a great interview talking about Scientology.
All right. There you go. So if you want to get on a list,
you're on multiple lists now. Yeah.
If you want to go clear, go check that out. Yeah.
But Slim, do you have some final thoughts or anything else you wanted to bring up about RoboCop?
It's a perfect movie, and I hope everyone agrees that it's a perfect movie. Maybe you'll come to it later in life and you'll see the light like I did. It's a great movie as a kid, but it becomes totally different when you're an adult. Hopefully it doesn't make as much sense in 20 years from now. Maybe things will be different. But maybe we'll look back on the time when RoboCop was so perfect for the time. But yeah, I love it. Great movie.
Yeah, we seem to be moving in the other direction there. But but Conan, final thoughts?
Yeah, look, this is successful being a cool dystopian violent revenge tale and a sly satire of consumption, corporate excess, and public sector privatization, along with Reagan era politics. Relentlessly paced. The action here is extraordinary. It's kind of triumphant and bleakly funny, which is like right on my alley. And as mentioned, some of the themes have been explored before, like things like the $6 Million Man, but you don't get the corner cutting of corporate America and the cost cutting of someone's essential humanity in that. And that's one of the things that RoboCop pioneers, one of the many things it pioneers. Very memorable, instantly memorable theme song, great performances, great direction, so much to love here. One of my favorites. Speaking of 4 favorites, I think I might actually swap this out with Big Lebowski, which is in my top 4, and been there since the day I started on the site. So
wow.
So Slim and I are of one mind.
Finally,
with this,
we're aligned. This is the move we needed to get that follow button.
What we needed to do to get that award. Yeah. Great film, and no sequels. Too bad they never made a sequel. That's fine. Or remakes.
All right, Andy, final thoughts.
Yeah, no, this truly is, I remember watching this. I did a rewatch in the during the Bush era and really learned, like really got something that I didn't out of it before. Like, I didn't understand what it was satirizing before. I just thought it was a cool movie, and I'm just like, oh, I get what they're doing now. Even though, like, I was watching it in college while just painting shit. And I've seen that movie. It's like so internalized in me. I'm saying the lines with it as I'm watching it, and like
it's so quotable. This has to be one of the most quotable movies of all time, right?
Absolutely.
Which I appreciate everyone's discretion in not having that be the show. It's just us quoting RoboCop.
This is the RoboCop quotes podcast.
But like that's the.
I would probably
subscribe. It truly is like the best example of what a meme is. Back before memes were like understood, which I just love, and
or like the shared communalism, at least of them, like the the collective experience of like all seeing the same thing and having like a quote that doesn't even make sense without the context of
No, and that's the incredible thing about this. There's so many different ways you can read it too, as a Jesus allegory, because he does walk on water. He's raised from the dead.
That's why there's that poster. Where's that poster from, Slim?
I think it's like Czechoslovakia, maybe.
It's amazing.
I gotta look up TMDb, but it's definitely not an American poster, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I know like the poster for the Alamo Draft House is outstanding, and I don't know if that's on your site.
We would never put a RoboCop up on a cross because we care too much about our beautiful boys in blue.
Oh, here we go. I found it for people that and again, this doesn't help the audio listeners at all, but here I'll throw it on the screen, Andy. Go ahead, but this is what we're talking about. We're talking about this.
Yeah, it's a cool poster.
Here we go.
Which is pretty rad.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if I would expect the like this movie though to be looks more like a transformer on a cross.
Well, sure, but I mean,
well, his head's on fire, so I mean, it could be anything.
All right, Andy, please continue.
But yeah, no, that's what makes this movie so great is all the layers. It's not just an allegory about the military industrial complex, even though that's the main subtext of the film, but also is he Jesus? Is this the new religion? Are we all going to be worshiping at RoboCop churches in 100 years? We don't know.
And God, I hope so. You know what I mean?
Hey, there's
not because anything's changed. Not because anything's changed that there actually is a RoboCop, but just Verhoeven is now our religious deity.
We also have Benedetta.
He's like
that's right.
He's like RoboCop churches. A church just dedicated to Peter Weller's Good Jaws.
Robo Nuns. How about that? Huh?
Yeah.
Where's that matchup?
I'd watch that. I'd watch that sequel. All right. Well, thanks everyone for jumping on. After tonight, we're this is episode 150, I should say.
Oh yeah, we never even mentioned it.
Big milestone.
Yeah.
Big milestone.
The last one we hit was I think a week after the show turned 1 year old. Back in the summer, we hit 100 episodes.
It's a lot of podcasts.
Yeah. So we're dropping it down to it's probably just going to be Tuesdays for a little bit while Conan goes, recording. He's touring. He's gonna be doing some crazy stuff. So
busy guy.
We'd stack up the episodes without him, and he'd have to complain about it. We have to redo those episodes.
And I would.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week.